Emma. I was only 5 when night descended on my family. It was my birthday, but also the last day I would see my mother forever. She smiled at me that evening and said, "Happy birthday, my beautiful princess." Then she went on to remove a sparkling blue, moon-shaped diamond necklace from her neck and wore it on mine. And while she and Dad sat beside me and my cake with 5 tiny candles, singing and clapping, my mum suddenly stopped. Her face went from smiling face to serious. She furrowed her brows and stood up, going still as if she was trying to listen for something suspicious. It made my dad to get up too. The candles on my cake were still burning. Mum tiptoed to the door and peeped through the keyhole, then suddenly ran to where I sat and picked me into her arms, passing me over to my dad and frantically blowing out the cake's candles. Not to wish long life and prosperity, of course, but to make the room dark enough to keep us safe. We 3 all ran into the next room. "Elgin, listen to me," she spoke to my dad in a hoarse whisper. "Please stay with her, I beg you, and don't let her make a sound, please, please, Elgin." "No, Aileen," my dad grabbed my mum's hand. "Let me go. Please don't do this. Let me go instead." "It's me they want, Elgin. I'll never be able to live with myself if anything happens to you. I'm sorry," she said with watery eyes, and I started to cry. She bent to kiss my forehead, moved 3 steps back and waved her hand around me and my dad saying, "They wouldn't know you are here," and flashed out of the room in a way I had never seen before. I could feel drops of tears from my dad's eyes fall on my face as he covered my mouth firmly with his palms and held me so hard to his body I could barely breathe. Everything took place too quickly. Shortly after Mum left the room, I heard the sound of our main door crashing down, accompanied by hissings, grunts, and finally a piercing scream that shook the core of my house, causing the door of the room my father and I was in to be forced open, exposing the commotions going on in the sitting room before my very eyes. And the first thing I saw was my mother on her knees with a long iron spear pierced through her heart to emerge from her back. Someone stood above her, pushing the spear deeper and deeper, but I couldn't get his face because he was masked. A shriek erupted from my depths, but couldn't come out because my father's hands were placed over my mouth, gagging me and stifling the shrieks. My face was filled with his tears, and mine, as we both watched my mother die before us in horror, and there was absolutely nothing the both of us could do. My father couldn't even move his feet for reasons I still couldn't grasp. The masked man pulled out the spear forcefully from her chest as she grunted and fell on her back. Dark red blood gushed out like a fountain from her chest, mouth, and her nose before she closed her eyes. My dad rushed to close my eyes with his other hand, but it was too late. I had seen it all. The masked man with some other masked men went into other rooms as if they were searching for something, and even walked past me and my dad without noticing our presence. After searching and searching for some time without result, the masked men left our home, disappearing into the night, leaving me and my dad to sob feverishly. After that day, I was unable to say another word. The trauma of witnessing my mother's death rendered me mute. That night, my father buried my mother and took me far away from where had been my home, and we lived among people I knew weren't our kind. He locked me inside the house all the time, asked me over and over again to promise him I was never going to come out when he was not around, that which I did all the while growing up. He even taught me the sign language to make communication easier for me, since I couldn't speak but I could hear. But I had lots of questions, asked him every time I got the opportunity, but he always said he would tell me when the time was right. All I should just know is that men are bad. However, on the night of my 18th birthday, my wolf, Ashley, spoke up in my mind for the first time, and my father finally answered the questions I had been asking for years. He said him and my mother had a forbidden love, as the vampire realm and werewolf reals were sworn enemies and had nothing to do with each other. But he and my mum found out they were mates, and instead of to reject each other and break the bond according to the law of their realms, they went against the rules. My mum, who was a vampire, and my dad, a werewolf, fell in love instead and ran away from their realms to be together. This caused an uproar in their both realms, especially that of the vampires, as my mum was already betrothed to the vampire king even before she was born. She chose love instead and was willing to die than to go back to her realm and her family. But they didn't back down. The Vampire King, in his rage and jealousy, sent men to hunt down my mum and bring her back. And if she resisted, they should kill her. My heart broke as the image of my mum's last moments wafted through my mind. "They wanted to kill you as well, Emma," my dad said, caressing my hair as he sat beside me on my bed. "That is why your mother did what she did, because according to them, you aren't supposed to be born." "Why?" I signed, lifting my right hand above my left. "You're a mixed blood, Emma." He took my hands down and clasped them with his. "They say you're an abomination, but the truth is, they are scared of you, and they are still looking for you, which is why you should never go out, okay?" I simply nodded and asked him about his own realm. "Didn't they look for you as well?" I signed fluidly, my hands dancing on the air. "They didn't," he said, staring into space. "They just ostracized and announced that I was never part of the werewolf realm, including anyone who came from me." "So, I'm saved from the werewolf then?" I asked with a smile, trying to lighten the conversation. My father's forehead was creased in worry. He had aged so fast because of all he had to go through, raising a mute child up on his own and all. "I really don't know, child." His brow thickened. "Now that your wolf is out in the surface, it may be more complicated than I thought it would be. I honestly didn't think you would have a wolf since your mother and I weren't both werewolves." He kissed my forehead and gazed lovingly at me. "But not to worry, Dad would keep you safe. So you should never leave my side. People are a lot scarier than you can imagine," he concluded. Left my room and shut the door. I stared at the pile of books in the wooden shelf my dad made for me, books that had been my companion ever since we moved down here, and wished my dad had said more. I still had so much questions to ask him, so much I wanted to hear from him, like what my mother was really like, as we didn't have a photograph of her and I could barely remember her face. What it really meant to have a wolf, how the first shape-shifting felt like, and why does the colors of my eyes changed from the natural blue to red when I was mad and stayed normal when I wasn't. But I didn't want him to worry. He had enough on his plate and was doing so much to make sure I was okay. I knew it was wrong to hide the fact that my eyes changed colors from him, but I was also aware that it would make him worry more. According to Shakespeare, there were answers one had to find out for oneself. And that was exactly what I planned to do. "That's the spirit, Emma. My wolf," Ashley spoke up in my head as I drifted into a restless sleep filled with nightmares from the past. Every night for the past 18 years, I saw the death of my mother play out in my dreams. It was beyond traumatizing. I could hear the shattering sound, the piercing scream. I could see the thick red blood sauntering down her mouth and nostrils, the masked man, the spear, but could never see my mother's face or her beautiful amber eyes. And I always woke up, gasping for air, clutching my pillow wet from sweat and tears and weeping into the night till dawn came. "Emma." The next morning, my dad made a big breakfast before I emerged from my room. "Morning, Dad," I signed, then rubbed my eyes to accommodate the blinding sunlight coming from the window. "Hope you had a restful sleep, Emma," my dad asked, smiling. "Come eat. I made your favorite." I knew he did all that for my birthday, but I wished he hadn't. I had made it clear that I didn't ever want to celebrate my birthday or ever talk about it. It only brought back sad memories, memories I couldn't wipe off but hoped we would heal from. I signed a "thank you, but you shouldn't have bothered" to him with a beam on my face. Of course, I didn't want him feeling bad. He stood in our crammed kitchen, placing dishes on our little wooden dining table with just 2 chairs. Our house was a little built with woods and looked like it came out from the house drawings I made with colored pencils as a child. It was divided into 4 unequal parts. My room, Dad's room, the restroom, and our kitchen. My dad made my room the biggest, which was still small compared to my room back in our home with my mum. He always left home in the morning and returned by evening, sometimes coming back with books or edibles. He knew I loved to read. I sat down on the chair facing the many plates of delicious-looking meals he had to wake up early to make, and I felt a rush of gratitude towards him. "I know you don't like this, but today is a special day for you, Emma," he started, sitting down opposite me. What makes it different from my other birthdays? I asked him with my hands. Well, he studied the food before him thoughtfully. Your 18th birthday is not like others because you get to meet your wolf, even shapeshift if she is ready, manifest other powers that you may have, and you get to meet. He paused and started stuffing my plate with food. I get to meet what? I signed with impatience, knowing it was something really important for him to pause like that. You get to meet your real self. He spoke, concentrating too long on his plate and evading my eyes. I knew instantly that he was lying, but I didn't push. It was all part of his idea of keeping me safe. We both started to eat, aware of the tension simmering in space between us. I needed to clear the air, as I didn't want him to guess what I was planning. I dropped my fork noisily to attract his attention. Dad, you have a wolf, right? I signed with 2 raised eyebrows. Sure. He smiled, and I could sense the relief in his voice and his eyes. What's his name? Real, he said, chewing his food slowly. Real? As in real? I asked with a playful scowl. No, real as in R-E-E-L, he mouthed, chuckling silently. Dad, I read in some fantasy books that werewolves actually have ranks. How true is that? I probed, trying not to let the height of my curiosity obvious to my dad. He caught on very easily. It isn't just written in books, it is true. I'm a beta wolf. My father was, his father was as well, and so on, he explained with a sad grin. I nodded and continued forking pasta into my mouth. My dad finished his hurriedly, took his plates to the sink, put on his winter coat, and walked to where I sat, almost done with mine as well. I really wanted to stay with you today. Take a walk with you out of the house, but I can't. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I have to work for us to be comfortable, you understand? He gazed down at me remorsefully, rubbing down my hair in a gentle manner. But I'll see you when I'm back by evening with more of your favorite books and snacks, okay? Now come close the door. He finished and walked to the door with me behind him to lock the door after he leaves. I was sure he would come back with more fantasy books in his leather bag. He locked the door outside himself till I turned 15. Then he allowed me to lock myself in after repeating 3 or more times that I would never come outside or open the door for anyone who wasn't him. I followed him to the door, and before he went out, he said, "Remember? Don't open for anyone that isn't you." I signed with a frustrated sigh. I get it, Dad. I can take care of myself, and I'll be fine. I know, Emma. Daddy loves you. He dropped a light kiss on my forehead, hesitated while staring at me with cloudy eyes before leaving the house. I let out a breath of triumph and closed the door after him, putting the 9 bolts in their place. I had to wait for an hour after he left because sometimes he came back to get things he forgot, like his winter coat or muffler or grocery list. I couldn't risk letting him know I left the house, knowing how much of a fit he was going to throw if he found out. In a bid to kill time, I took care of the dish, folded my clothes, and did some of the minor chores in the house, and before I knew 1 hour had sped by. My heart was racing with excitement, wondering what I was going to see and people I could meet. To my surprise, I wasn't a tad scared despite all my father's warning. I was only a little worried that someone might recognize me, but that was close to impossible since we were in the human realm. I would just go out for a few hours, see the things happening around me, and how people behaved if those books were true or as fictitious as they were. My dad said they were. I said to Ashley, wondering if she was even listening. One thing I wanted badly was to make friends and, if possible, find someone my heart would beat for, just like in the books I read. Someone who would sweep me off my feet, I thought, giggling with glee. Do you have a destination in mind? Ashley suddenly spoke up in my head, making me stop in my track. She sounded even more excited than I did. Of course not, I scowled at her, even though we were still trying to get to know each other. I have no idea when I'm heading to, just moving randomly from place to place, while you take note of all the routes we pass so we don't get lost. Or do you have anywhere in mind? Yes, she squealed jumpily. Where? I snorted, narrowing my eyes. Well, I can't say the exact place, but I would know it when we'd get there. Now let's go. Her excitement made me feel more certain about what I was about to do. I mean, my own wolf would never put me in danger, right? I can hear you, she giggled into my ears. You have nothing to fear, Emma, I got you, she said, and I couldn't help but laugh at her half-baked reassuring words in my head. I went into my room, took my biggest winter jacket, some granola bars with a water can my dad bought for me last year. I wasn't big on food, but hunger could strike at any time, and when I was certain that I was prepared enough, I drew in a deep breath, opened the door, without my dad knocking, of course, and stepped out of the house for the first time in 13 years. I quickly came out and closed the door behind me before sense of reason and guilty conscience forces me back into the house. Which direction, Ash? I asked, standing in front of my door, looking from left to right. Ashley hopped mischievously and nodded towards a direction completely opposite from where there were other houses. The place my dad and I lived was meters away from where humans actually lived, so I couldn't really see much, but I could see moving people hear voices due to my heightened hearing and long vision. Ashley was pointing into the direction that led into the bush and trees, and I couldn't help but worry if I should really trust her. I don't want to go and see trees and grasses, Ashley. I see them every day from my window. Damn it. I glared at her, feeling upset. For Pete's sake, Emma. She rolled her eyes at me. I thought you were interested in a real adventure. What do you want to say to humans anyway? Hi, my name is Emma. I'm one of the creatures you only read about in books, a she-wolf precisely. And they'll welcome you with open arms with your mutinous and socially crippled condition? I felt a little hurt, but wasn't interested in pushing that with Ashley at the moment. There's no time, Ashley. I stomped my foot on the ground angrily. Time was ticking, and my dad would soon be back. Then trust me and follow my lead. Fine, I grunted, and marched towards the direction she pointed at. Emma. I had trudged far deeper into the forest than I expected, and I was honestly mad at Ashley and madder at myself for believing her. There were tall green trees all around me with dead leaves everywhere. An eerie silence permeated the whole place, except cries from crows once in a while. I wasn't just speculating, this was really a forest. What the hell, Ashley? I yelled at her in my mind, stopping in my tracks. Where the hell are we? I thought we agreed that we were going to see people and enjoy the first outing day of my life. Ashley wasn't sounding as enthusiastic as she was when we were leaving the house. I know, Em. I just feel like I have to be there, like something strange yet familiar keeps calling for me, she said in a meek voice I had never heard from her. That's too vague, Ash. You would have to be more specific if you want to convince me. Besides, this place isn't safe at all. We can't shift yet, and I don't even know what my powers are or how to use them, I complained. Look, let's just head back home. It'll soon be time for my dad to get back from work. I turned and was about to start making my way back from where we were coming from when Ashley stopped me with a pleading growl. We are almost there, Emma, she probed gently. I can feel it that we are close. Don't worry, we'll make it in time before your dad gets back, I promise. Pretty please? I must confess, she was really great at coaxing. The look of the please won't change my mind, you know? I muttered under my breath and then continued on the path she pointed at. She giggled and started jumping around on the walls of my head as soon as I agreed. The sun kept going down as I walked through dead crumbs of leaves that squealed under my feet. I marched through the forest till I got to a large clearing. As I took a step further, it felt as though I was sucked into something, and suddenly everywhere was bright like morning. I jumped in fright, absolutely bamboozled by what just happened. I turned back and tried to go back to the darker day, but nothing happened. I was stuck. And as I looked farther, some strange-looking men in all-black uniforms like assassins from Naked Weapon were walking towards me menacingly in long strides. Ashley, explain this situation right now, I yelled at her, bile rising in my throat as I twirled and took to my heels. What the hell is happening? Who are these men? I asked my wolf, my heart pounding hard in my chest, causing me to run faster. I have no idea, Emma, she cried, sounding scared as well. I looked over my shoulders and was almost paralyzed with fear when I saw that the men had started chasing after me. Worse still, they were running faster. They got closer and closer to me, till they were just few meters from catching up to me. Stop right now! I heard one of them scream, and as if on cue, my legs tripped, and I fell face down on the sandy ground. Ouch! I heard Ashley murmur in head. I was about getting up to continue running even though I knew I had been caught when I felt a strong arm on my shoulder hurling me up from the ground and making me kneel before them. "Who are you and how did you get here?" The one with the black hair asked with so much authority. I started trembling. I wish I had listened to my own mind and went back home, I thought, biting my lips. I had no idea how to reply them or what to say. I couldn't even speak. How do I tell them I was a mute person, and that I meant no threat whatsoever? They might not even know the sign language or even give me the chance to communicate with them through that. For all they know, I could talk but just didn't want to. Hot tears streaked down my face as I realized how much trouble I was in. The worst part was me being totally unable to defend myself. This was the exact reason my dad made sure I never left the house on my own, and look at how stupid I acted without a backup. "Ashley, do something," I shrieked at her, hoping for her to do something, anything at all that could get us out of this current mess, as the men stood like iron steel waiting for my answer. But Ashley went suddenly quiet. "Did you not get the question?" The other one with more muscular arms bellowed at me. "Who are you, and where did you come from?" They were getting more annoyed and irritated as I wasn't forthcoming with answers, but one of them was holding my hands behind my back so I couldn't make any gesture. Those hands clasped tightly together were my only means of communication, and these men had no idea whatsoever. I let my head slump as I stared at the ground, allowing the tears gathering in my eyes to fall freely. The other one who wasn't holding me raised my head up to face him with his hands, and at that instant, I felt a strange power surge through me. As the man looked into my eyes, he staggered back in with his face contorted in shock. The other one dropped my hands and took few steps away from me as well. These men just saw my eyes change color. I smirked in my mind at their cowardice. The strength in me was enough to take both of them. I had no idea how, but I just knew somehow. But in less than 10 seconds after that, over 20 men in that same uniform appeared from the other side of the clearing, carrying guns and ropes with them. "You better stay still, or we would shoot," the one who raised my head commanded from a safe distance. "And whatever creature you are, just know that a bullet from these guns would kill you at once. Tie her up." The other one ordered the men who have surrounded me by this time, and they stepped closer tentatively at first. But as they saw that I didn't move, they threw ropes around me, and soon I saw that I was tied with a strong blue rope that shone brighter as I struggled with it. There was something definitely in the rope, because as soon as they tied me with it, I began to feel strength seep away from me. I tried holding my head up, but my shoulders slumped lower instead. I'm really not a threat. I wanted to tell them so badly, but all I could do was weep till they dragged me from my knees, and one of them hurled me onto his shoulders like a light-weighted bag. They walked on till we got to a junction with a real road that led different directions. And before I knew, I was shoved into the back of a car, and a blindfold was put over my eyes, causing everywhere to go dark, but I could feel 2 men by my side, one at my left and the other by right. The car I was shoved into started to move with frightening speed. The car windows were not close, so heavy gust of wind slapped at my face as the car kept zooming on. It took over 30 minutes, if my calculations were right, before the car stopped and I was hurled out from the seat back to someone's shoulder again. I could hear waves from the sea, and it felt like I was imagining it because, well, I couldn't see a thing. Soon the person carrying me entered a place that was quieter, as I could no longer hear the sound of waves. He started walking more carefully, as if he was coming down from a flight of stairs. He walked for some few minutes till I heard the sound of iron gates clanging open, and I was dropped on the bare floor like a heap of sand. The blindfold was removed from my eyes and instantly took in the environment with itching eyes. I rubbed my eyes frantically to make sure I wasn't seeing things. I was in a cage, with the light entering so dim, it looked like it was under the ground. This looked like bigger trouble. I couldn't even reach my dad in any way, as I left my phone back at home. I could imagine how worried he would be reaching home and not finding me. The gate was closed noisily and locked with a huge chain and padlock, and I was left on my own in this semi-dark and scary place. The footsteps of the men echoed as they walked out of the place. Soon, the whole place fell silent, and I realized it was just me here. So much for an 18th birthday, I thought, as I sat on the floor, wrapping my hands around my knees, and once again the tears started to flow. It felt as though trouble was always waiting for me. Coming out of my house for the first day of my life, and this was where it landed me. My heart shredded into tiny pieces as I thought of what would become of me. Why can't I ever be accepted? And this was why my father tried so hard to keep me locked in for over a decade, so I had no interaction with anyone besides him. I guess he knew what he was doing after all. I began to sob quietly, but the sound of my own sob bounced back at me along with the loud footsteps, and the sweet, strong smell of freshly cut grass wafted into my nostrils. Alpha Z Wyke. By the power vested in me by the moon goddess, I now pronounce you mates. Sorceress Gosh pronounced, standing hunched before me and my new chosen mate, Heather Strove, in the throne room hall. Morning sun filtered into the window panes as I and my new mate stood side by side ready to take an oath of a lifetime. Kurt was fuming in rage some meters away from my right. Heather's father, Alpha Agro, had a disgusting grin at the corner of his lip from where he stood few meters from my left. And all the other alphas watched me in awe, taking the mate they chose for me just a day after they made the suggestion. And my new chosen mate was all beams and smiles in her heavily made-up face. She took her time getting ready. Maybe she actually thought that I gave a fuck about appearances. We'll have to see her true personality eventually. I wondered for a moment if she knew what she was doing or why she agreed to this, because she was literally throwing away any opportunity of ever finding her mate ever again. They actually called her smart, so I guess she must have weighed the advantages of her decision. What is there to lose in marrying the Alpha King and becoming the Luna Queen of the 12 forests of the werewolf realm? Mostly nothing. You may now mark yourselves to complete the process. The old sorceress continued before stepping back to give us space. We both turned to face each other, but her head was bowed, so I raised it up with my hand. Her dress was sleeveless, making it all the more easier. As I placed my canine on the crook of her neck to mark and take a few drops of her blood as the tradition demands, I suddenly heard the apprehensive voice of Kurt in my head. "Alpha, we have a situation." Kurt's urgent voice rang out, forcing me to stop what I was about to do. A female whose eyes had different color shades was seen lurking around our borders. She has been caught, and they are taking her to the dungeon under the castle. What? I let go of the confused she-wolf completely and turned to face Kurt. Why should I care, Curtis? As you have said, the royal guards have it under control. She might be a rogue wolf for all we know. The sorceress and everyone in the room besides Kurt was staring at me in confusion, but Kurt continued his mind-linking anyway. They said she doesn't only have the feel of a werewolf, but also that of a vampire. A vampire in our realm? How the hell did a filthy leech get in here? Black, my wolf, growled in fury. It's just a speculation, as they are not yet sure, but they said they feel that way. Kurt continued calmly this time around. What? I yelled out, and before they could ask me what the problem is, I spoke up. We have a situation that needs my immediate attention, so I'll have to put a hold on this mating ritual, I announced, curtly, and the whole room hushed. Sorceress, I need you to come with me. I finalized and strode out of the throne room with Curtis and the sorceress quietly walking behind me. As I came out of the castle, I met about 10 patrol guards in the all-black uniform waiting beside a car. They all bowed their heads immediately they saw me, standing attention. Speak, I demanded, and the one who seemed to be their leader stepped forward. He bowed again before making his report. Your Grace, he started. While I and my men were keeping watch over our borders, we caught the sight of a female, and as she saw us, she started to run, and we began to... Tell me what really happened, Sergeant. I cut him off, getting bored of his storytelling. Her eyes... He gasped at the words as if he still couldn't get over the experience. At first, she had the feeling of a werewolf, but when we raised her head up, every part of her pupils turned red, glowing red, so we assumed she must be a vampire or some weird creature. Where is she? I asked, almost rolling my eyes at his overreaction. She is in the dungeon, Your Grace, he replied, pointing down, the farthest end. All right, you can go back to your post. You all have done well, I said, dismissing them. They all scrambled into the car and drove off. Let's go in. I nodded towards Kurt and the sorceress, but Kurt held my hand in an indication to stop me. What? I asked him, feeling irritated at his sudden reluctance. She might be really dangerous, Alpha, he muttered, his forehead creased with worried lines. The patrol guards didn't have to go. They could just follow us in since we have no idea what it is we are dealing with. She sounds really sinister from their explanation. I'm the Alpha King, Curtis, I stated simply, and walked through the door that led into the underground or basement as humans called it. But we built ours bigger, making it a place where prisoners such as rogues or lawbreakers are kept, with top-notch security made of modern technologies like the alarm system, shocker, and of course, royal guards at the entrance. I ambled slowly into the large hall with empty cages to my right and left side. Our realm was a peaceful one, so we rarely had prisoners these days. As I walked deeper into the dungeon as the patrol guards directed, my nose caught the sweetest and intoxicating scent that swooned my wolf and I, stirring a desire I couldn't name from the deepest part of my core. Red velvet and lemon. The smell got stronger as I neared the last cell of the dungeon, enveloping me in its coziness. Black, my wolf howled with glee and started pacing restlessly around my head as the shocking revelation dawned on us. Mine! Black and I chorused in unison in my mind as I began to walk purposefully towards the scent till I got to the last cell. I turned to stare at the owner of the smell, and our eyes met and locked, causing my heartbeat to accelerate, beating 10 times faster than normal. She had the bluest eyes I had ever seen. They were as clear as the blue sky on a sunny day, engulfing every part of my senses like the blue waves outside my window. Her dark hair stopped at her shoulders, enhancing the roundness of her face. A strand of hair dyed purple and threaded through with colorful beads that reached below her shoulder blades. She is our mate. This fragile female is my mate. She didn't look one bit like a threat. Plus, I could feel her wolf too, though not as strong as I expected. She gasped, suddenly peeling her eyes away from mine and retreating into the cell with her arms folded around her knees. I heard another gasp beside me, and I turned to see the sorceress staring wide-eyed at the female. I had no idea she was beside me as I was completely taken by the frightened female in the cage. Sorceress. Gosh turned to me with her mouth agape and her eyes almost falling from their sockets. How is this possible? Her voice faltered as she staggered backward. She's a half-blood, the first ever hybrid. Her face contorted in a way I had never seen before. She's my mate. We both spoke up at the same time and then stared at each other, trying to digest another round of shock. What do you mean she's a half-blood, Gosh? I grabbed the sorceress by the arm, hoping she was wrong. I can feel her wolf. She's a werewolf, I growled desperately. She's half vampire, half werewolf, Your Grace. The sorceress finally seemed to catch her voice. What? Kurt almost shrieked behind her, and I could feel my chest rumble as Black started growling with pure fury. And, she said, peering at the female blue-eyed half-blood, she's also a mute. Another blow, but I couldn't take it in. What do you mean she's a mute? I asked, my blood boiling over 100 degrees Celsius. She does not have the ability to speak, my lord. Gosh bowed and took 2 steps backward, avoiding my gaze because she knew more than anyone how I would be feeling at this point. The rational side of me kicked in eventually. She can never be my mate. I let out a hoarse whisper. A female with the blood of those leeches running through her veins, and also a mute, can never be my Luna Queen. I cannot bear that much shame. I spat and walked out of the dungeon without giving her another glance. Before we got to the entrance that led out of the dungeon, I turned to face Gosh and Curtis, who were quietly walking behind me. This must be kept a secret between us. I do not ever want to hear it anywhere else, I warned with clenched teeth. Yes, Alpha, they both bowed. And as for the mating ceremony, inform the Alphas that it has been cancelled. I've seen enough for today, I told Kurt, whose mind still haven't adjusted after all he heard. I took the elevator from the ground floor straight to my room, cursing the goddess for heaping such nemesis on me. The mate I had waited for all my life turned out to be a mute, and a half-blood, Emma, I was scared at first, but a smell that came with a protective aura enveloped me. I had always known that being a werewolf gave me a heightened sense of smell, but I had never perceived one so persistent and concentrated that it came with a feeling of intoxication. The smell of bleeding, freshly cut grass with an interesting masculine scent, I couldn't help but draw a lungful of it. As the loud footsteps drew closer, so did the smell. Ashley, my wolf, who was howling and wailing in my head, suddenly started jumping about in euphoria as the owner of the footsteps came into view. Holly Molly. I couldn't help but retreat at first, because I wasn't sure I had ever met a man this huge and imposing. His presence alone screamed dominance, and as I looked up at him, our eyes locked, and I could instantly tell he was having this magnetic feeling as well. "Mate!" Ashley exclaimed breathlessly. "What? Mate?" I couldn't believe my ears. I had finally found my mate, as in the person who held the other part of my soul, as my dad said my mum was to him. And he stood there gazing deep into my eyes with the deepest violet eyes. He looked so tall, I was sure I wouldn't be past his chest level. His jet-black hair sleeked back made him look dashing in his all-black, intricately tailored tux. Like he literally walked out of one of those romance stories I had been reading all my life. Or better still, one of those models' magazines my dad brought home once in a month. I heard a loud gasp from someone standing close to him, which dragged me out of my daze, so I turned to see an old woman with white hair all over her head, with a hunched back gaping at me with wide eyes. She took 2 steps back and tried to say something, and soon she and my new mate started talking so fast I couldn't get a thing they were both talking about. But I realized whatever it is they were talking about was making my mate extremely enraged. She told him I was a half-blood. She told him I was a mute. I had no idea how she knew all that, but it made the new male character in my life lose his cool. Amidst the commotion my presence was obviously causing, I noticed another guy standing behind both of them. He was good-looking as well in his green hair, but wasn't as tall as my new mate. He seemed shocked like the rest of them. And then I heard the words that pierced through my skin like 1,000 needles. "She can never be my mate," he proclaimed in a whisper that was louder than a trumpet in my ears. "A female with the blood of those leeches running through her veins and also a mute can never be my Luna Queen. I cannot bear that much shame." He was the alpha, and this place I was in was the werewolf realm, my father's realm. The same people who ostracized my father because he chose to stick with his mate, despite the fact that she was from the enemy's realm. And then it dawned on me that he was rejecting me. He didn't even wait to see who I was, but was already rejecting me. I knew I had limitations, but I had never been called a shame. Tears rushed down my eyes afresh as I watched my so-called mate walk away without giving me even a second glance. My heart sank like it was drowning. My insides burned. I wanted so bad to run away from everything. I wished so bad that all these was only a dream. No, a nightmare. That I only had to wake up from and find myself back in my home with my dad, the only person who loved and accepted me in this world. Silent and wrenching sobs from my throbbing throat echoed in the hall as I thought of how worried my father would be now, and what would become of me next. Would they kill me because I was a hybrid like the old woman said? Was it that much of a taboo? I asked myself over and over again, wanting answers, but knowing I couldn't get it at this point. The blue rope keeps drawing strength from me, and Ashley was hurting probably far more than me, as she was more sensitive to the mate thing than I was. I lay my head on my knees and drifted into a restless sleep. Alpha's like. I tossed and turned on my bed, trying but failing to get the blue-eyed half-blood out of my mind. According to the sorceress, I have to reject her and let her go, but how I could when she is the only antidote to my worsening feral soul. Still, though, I could never make her my Luna. That would bring unimaginable chaos to the realm I have been working hard to keep together. I shouldn't have left her there, at least. What should I have done anyway? She couldn't even talk. What the hell was I going to do with a mute? How would I know why she was here anyway? Still, she's our mate, and I felt her wolf. Black argued in his usually headstrong manner. The possessiveness caused by the mate pull was eating at him already, but I had to maintain rationality. After all, he's the wolf, and I the man. Have some heart, Zyke, he probed, almost growling. She's all alone there in that dungeon. Like I needed a reminder. Fine, I snorted out loud, throwing the quilts aside and getting up. I took out one of the torches from my drawer, threw on a sweater, and took the elevators to the ground floor of the castle. It was almost midnight, so everywhere was as still and serene as a cemetery, except the clashing waves from the sea that came with strong wind. An ordinary wolf would shiver in cold, though, but not me. The security guards in charge of the dungeon were dozing off on the counter placed beside the entrance when I got there. So I cleared my throat loudly, causing them to wake up so abruptly they almost jump out of their skins. Take me to the prisoner, I ordered in my alpha voice, a voice that made every wolf in my realm obey any word that comes with it. Which of them, Your Grace? One of the security men asked, cowering in fear. Are you asking me that? Sorry, Your Grace. This way, he bowed, opening the door gates the shaky hands. His colleagues stood aside with their heads almost touching their necks. Follow me, I said to him as soon as he opened the gates. I strode into the dungeon with the guard moving tentatively behind me, holding a shining torch. The half-blood female was probably sleeping with her head resting on her knees when we got to her cell, but raised her head up as the torch was pointed into the cage. Her eyes were what I noticed first. They looked swollen and puffy from too much crying, and I was certain she would be feeling really weak from that blue rope tied all over her. Truth be told, I wasn't even expecting her to still be conscious. That rope was capable of seeping out all the strength to any supernatural creature. Well, she wasn't just any supernatural creature, she was a hybrid. Certainly, the first ever to exist. I swallowed, understanding that what I was about to do was extremely dangerous and unnecessary. She could be really a threat to this realm, as Sorceress Gosh claimed, and unfortunately her claims were never wrong. But I also know that I would never have peace if I just let her be here all by herself. Open the cage, I instructed the waiting guard. Untie her, I said after he opened the gate. I was sure he heard of the rumors of the likelihood of her being a vampire, because he was visibly trembling as he stood as far as possible cutting off the blue rope from her with a penknife he took out from the boot in his right leg. You may go, I said to the guard, who almost passed out with relief as he tore out of the place, muttering, Thank you, Your Grace, repeatedly. Come out, I ordered, looking down at her fragile form as she crawled out from the cage, one tiny step at a time. At least she can hear, I breathed in relief, even though it doesn't change anything. Again, how could someone as weak as this be my mate, for goddess' sake? This realm needs a strong Luna, not some fragile-looking mute hybrid. Black growled at my thoughts. He thinks it is too insulting, but I was just being realistic and facing the situation. She stumbled out, staggering forward while I walked a few meters behind her. She was barely able to carry herself in her big winter coat and dirty clothes. Black wanted to take over so he could help or carry her, but I stopped him. We can't make her think we give a fuck, damn it! She was a female we had to reject to keep our pack in check, I told Black. How about our sanity, huh? Was his comeback, and I just decided to ignore him because he was right. Rejecting her could make us lose our sanity, but then we didn't have much of a choice. She trudged slowly past the security men as they watched her in awe and gazed at me in shock. This would be the talk of the pack tomorrow, and would definitely get to the ears of those slimy alphas. I'll cross that bridge when that time came, I thought. First, I had to know what brought female with vampire blood into my realm, even though I didn't have an idea how to bring out the words from her. I stared at her from behind, feeling the pull. As much as I didn't want to admit it, I was craving her small, frail frame. That's it, an idea struck me. I can never make her my Luna, but at least I can make her my mistress. Third-person point of view. Alpha Zyke left the new room he assigned to the half-blood female angrier than he came. How dare she think of leaving? He fumed as he marched to his office. He knew he wasn't supposed to be pissed, but he couldn't help it. She wasn't meant to be here in the first place, but she came with her legs and allowed him set his eyes on her, infiltrated and consumed his dreams at night, made his morning restless. He felt as though if he didn't go see her this morning, he was going to lose his mind. She was making him lose control already, but he wouldn't let her. He probably wasn't in his right senses when he took her out of the dungeon and called Stewardess Roth to go attend to her. He would never let her see how much effect she had on him. After all, she was only a passing weed he should have uprooted when he first saw her. He would just have to hide her as much as possible. The mate bond is indeed a curse, especially to him. Worse still, Black, his wolf, was beginning to connect to her wolf deeper than desired. He almost kissed her, finding it extremely difficult to resist her bright blue eyes with the single strand of hair dyed purple and threaded with colorful beads in her ebony dark shoulder blades. Zeke strode back to his room, too riled up to go for his daily routine training. He saw Curtis come out of his office down the hallway, obviously looking for him. He already knew what Curtis wanted to tell him. Alpha. Curtis bowed, breathing hard like he had been running for a while. I have been looking everywhere for you, Alpha. Was about coming to your other room. He nodded, looking over my shoulder to the room now occupied by the half-blood. I'm here now, Curtis. The half-blood female. He started and suddenly realized he was supposed to bring his voice down. She is not in the dungeon anymore, and when I asked the guards, I was told you came to take her out in the middle of the night. He whispered discreetly with his eyes darting around the hallway to see if anyone was there. He fell silent, waiting for an explanation from the Alpha or something, but he stood staring at Curtis without saying a word. Yes, Curtis, Alpha Zyke said, finally breaking the silence. That information is correct. Is that why you are searching for me, as if I was kidnapped? Kurt gazed at Zyke aghast, as though the Alpha had suddenly lost his mind. She's dangerous, Alpha. We don't know the extent of her power or how much havoc she is capable of wreaking on us. Deep lines creased his forehead. We are not having this discussion here, Beta. What else do you have to say to me? Zeke asked with a stricter tone, causing Kurt to heave a deep sigh. The Alphas are asking if the mating ritual would continue, he said. They have summoned the sorceress already and are waiting for you at the throne room. Isn't it a bit too early for that? Zyke asked rhetorically, raking his hands through his hair. Argos's daughter, is she there as well? Yes, Alpha. Alpha Zek turned and started walking towards the elevator to the throne room. He was trying to think of a way out of continuing the mating ritual. As much as she looked like a good fit for the Luna position, she wasn't his type in any way. More still, he hated her father, and last and also the least, he had found his mate now, even though he wished he didn't her, as she was something he could never show to the world as his mate. He entered the throne room to see about 5 Alphas, the sorceress and Alpha Argo's daughter, dressed like she was going for a beauty pageant with an animated smile plastered on her heavily made-up face. He could never picture her in his special room. They all bowed as soon he sat on the throne and waved at them to sit. Then a thought and perfect means to wriggle out of the forced mate thing hit him. He definitely couldn't just tell them he wasn't interested anymore. As an Alpha, he had to stick to his word, so he believed this method he just thought of would work just fine. He nodded at Argo, who was obviously itching on his seat to speak. Alpha. He bowed in reference, standing before the throne. We heard some strange creature was seen in our border yesterday. Thankfully, our guards were able to apprehend it, and that was why the mating ritual was suspended. That is correct, Argo, Zyke replied with an expressionless face. We are all very much concerned, as it sounds like a threat to our realm. We just want to know if things are under control now. Argo continued, and all the other Alphas behind him nodded in agreement to his cunning words. He must have known about the half-blood through one of those oafish guards. A threat to our realm? Alpha Zeke had to suppress a sneer. These cunning wolves always tried to overstress issues to bring out a reaction from him. A reaction they could use against him. Well, thank you for your concern, Alphas. Zeke smiled down at them. Everything is perfectly under control. And about the mating ritual, I'm afraid I realized we rushed into it too early. I believe we would need more time to know each other. We thought about that as well, Alpha. One of the other Alphas, Atlas, spoke up, standing on his feet. That was why we wanted to suggest to you that you let Heather live here in the castle, so that the closer proximity can help you to know each other quicker. Or is there any reason you wouldn't want that, Your Grace? he asked, suggestively, without raising his face up. It was obvious that these alphas actually held their own meeting before coming to him, Zyke thought, gritting his teeth in irritation, and Argo was obviously their cheerleader. However, the suggestion wasn't bad at all. If Heather agreed to his terms and pleasured him the way he wants, he could consider keeping her as his loon. If not, he would do away with her. She would stay at the 5th floor and would come to him whenever he needed her. He couldn't risk anyone finding out about the half-blood living inside the castle. All right, then. He agreed, to their utter disbelief. She can move in tomorrow and we'll both come to a conclusion after 3 months. Then I will let the realm know if I'm taking her as my Luna or not, he concluded, noticing the sorceress burning her gaze into him. She knew what he did already, and she was totally not happy about it. They both would have to talk about it, but definitely not today. There was too much on his mind. And that female with an interesting eye was at the center of everything. Emma. Meet Carla, your personal maid. Stewardess Roth announced, gesturing to a cheerful-looking young female with chestnut-brown hair and green eyes. Carla, meet Emma. She was most probably around my age, but stood few inches above me. She knows sign language. Roth continues, so she would be in charge of everything concerning you, including your feeding, clothing, whatever you need. If there's anything she cannot get for you, let her know and I'll sort it out. You are not to leave this room for anything. Carla would be your hands, leg, and mouthpiece. She finished, bowed slightly, turned, and left the room, closing the door behind her. I sighed, realizing I was still a prisoner here. The only difference between this room and the dungeon was the comfort and absence of the blue rope. If not, I was still very much caged. Carla, my new personal maid, started to sign as soon as the stewardess closed the door, but I raised my hands at her and signed, I can hear, you can talk, to her. She dropped her hands and started with her mouth. Wow, I love your hair, she almost screamed with ecstasy. The way you made thread and bead thing. How did you do it? You're so beautiful. Oh, forgive my manners, I should introduce myself properly. She came closer and stretched her hand to me. Hi, my name is Carla. She beamed widely, and I wondered what was so good about being a personal maid. I'm your new personal maid, and I'm so happy about it, because, firstly, as a rankless wolf, I've been working in the lowest floor of the castle, and I've never dreamt of ever coming to the 6th floor like ever. I never knew that knowing how to sign was going to pay off one day. She paused to catch her breath, her eyes glistening as she spoke. Also, I won't be cleaning the floors and scrubbing the toilets anymore now that I'm working as your personal maid because I have to be with you all the time. Keep an eye on your every movements. She trailed off and darted her eyes around. I stared at her, noticing a change in her demeanor and a dim in her eyes. It's a habit signers has. Watching others intently, alert to every facial altercation, every change of body position, all of which carried meaning. I realized I couldn't trust her after that. I sat on the long sofa in the room and gestured for her to sit. I wanted to know more about her, even though I couldn't trust her. I found her fascinating. How did you know how to sign? I signed, facing her. Mutinous is obviously not a common thing here. Well, that is very true. She signed back slowly, still avoiding eye contact. My granny was mute all her life, so I had to learn the sign language to be able to communicate with her. She looked down on her lap sadly, as if she was reminded of something that made her unhappy. Where's she, your granny? She's died a long time ago, she said out loud with a calmer voice. Oh, I'm so sorry. I signed with a condolence gesture, genuinely sorry for her loss. In sign language, there was a difference between saying I'm sorry to someone you wronged and saying sorry to someone who lost a loved one or is in pains. It is totally different gestures, though the same words. We both fell silent after that. I knew she had so much more to say and ask, but she had blew the chance, and I would never trust her. It was clear that she was here simply because of what she stood to gain, and to also monitor me. But why? What was so special about me anyway? I had to leave to escape from here today. I have had enough of this madness, and my father would be worried sick, literally. I needed to distract her, make her leave here so I could think of a plan. The day was getting darker, and it was the best time to act, if at all I was going to succeed. How old are you? I signed with fake cheerfulness. You look really young, like my age. Oh, I'm 17. Her eyes lit up again. And would be 18 in 6 months' time when I can finally find my mate. How about you? I'm 18, I replied. Would you be passing the night here? Sure, she spoke aloud. I was told to never leave your side, so I was wondering if we could be friends since we are almost age mates. Sure. Wow, for real? You're 18 means you would have found your mate now, she said with deep curiosity etched in her voice. Why was she that curious anyway? I wondered as I didn't bother to answer her question. An idea came into my head. Is there a library here in this castle? I asked. I love to read, and I'm beginning to get bored sitting here and doing nothing. For real? Her cheerful mood was totally back. I prefer movies, though. What kind of books do you read? The library is at the north wing of the castle. I would dash out and go get it for you. Great, I thought triumphantly. That was the response I needed. Emma. I took out my new diary and wrote, I love anything from Sidney Sheldon, R.L. Stine, James Hadley Chase, Marion Keyes, H.C.H. Ritz, and for fantasy, Cassandra Clare and T.R. Durant. Oh, goddess, she exclaimed with amazement. You really love reading, she giggled. Yes, I do, I signed calmly, trying not to show my impatience. I needed her to be on her way already. Do they all write the same genres? She asked, still looking dazed. No, not at all, I stifled a laugh. Sidney Sheldon writes crime thrillers, while R.L. Stine is one of the best horror story writers. Then James Hadley Chase writes thrillers as well, with a touch of romance. Marion Keyes is a women fiction or chick lit writer, while H.C.H. Ritz is badass with sci-fi, science fiction, and I already told you the fantasy writers. I explained before dropping my hands. Woo, she gasped, placing her hands on her mouth in delight. Your face literally changes when you start talking about books. But I'm more of the movie type, though. Movie or erotica novels, heh, she laughed, and to my horror, it seemed she had completely forgot going to get the books for me. Carla, do you think the library in the castle would have those books? I strategically reminded her. Of course, she beamed proudly. I've had the opportunity to go into the library once and, take it from me, it's the largest I or anyone have ever been to. So many, many books, you'll get lost. As if I had ever been to any libraries before. But this one piqued my interest. I would have really loved to go there someday and see for myself, but I guess that day would never come as I would be leaving this realm tonight. I'll be glad if you could get some from me. Doesn't have to be all of them, I told her and then handed the piece of paper with the list of writers I tore out from the jotter. Sure, she took it from me and got up abruptly. I'll try to get as much as I can. It's getting late. Besides, I need to get blankets to sleep and some clothes. I came here in a hurry without those. She smiled and swept out of the room in her rough black trousers. I nodded at her with a wide grin. Take your time, friend. As soon as she left, I went to work immediately. I drew out the pink quilts and white bed sheets from the bed, tied both ends, and dragged it to the slide window. I dragged it open, peered down, and discovered I won't be landing on a safe side, as some guards were visibly below chatting and laughing. Coming down there would make my situation a whole lot worse, aside from the fact that I could fall down hundreds of feet below and lose all my limbs. I had to change plans ASAP before that chatterbox comes back, I thought. I stared at the two slide windows in the room for some seconds before an idea struck me. I wrapped the joined bedsheet and quilt around my body and opened the other window, which was few meters away from where the chattering guards were keeping watch. From what I saw, the windows had strong iron railing built above them, so if I could crawl to the far end of the wall without being seen, I'll release the rope, tie another part on the railing with one hand, and then slid down slowly. Phew, sounds easy, even though I knew it was purely a suicide mission. But I don't think I'm scared of dying anyway. I'll rather die a free person than live a caged life, I concluded to myself. I inhaled deeply, went to close the main door so Chatterbox would have a harder time coming inside to give me more time. I clapped twice, and the light in the room went off to make my movements less conspicuous, and then I went to the window to begin the most dangerous risk I had ever taken in my life. Second most dangerous. Leaving my house was unmatchable in terms of dangerous things. With the sheets securely wrapped around me, I snuck out of the window and placed my right leg on the railing carefully, and when I felt that the railing was strong enough to carry my weight, I added my left leg. I tried as much as I could to move noiselessly till I was in the next window. The window didn't belong to the room I was locked in, but to a totally different room. Thankfully, a dark brown thick cotton curtain fell over the window, protecting me from being seen by anyone in the room. Phew. I let myself breathe for a minute before continuing my monkey business. My hands clung tightly to the railing while I moved steadily towards the next window. I got to the next window, and it was unexpectedly open. I tightened my sweaty palms on the railings and hid at the side. I wanted to get a view of what, and most importantly, Wei Cho was inside, so I stretched out my head carefully and peeped into the room. At first I was startled by the redness of every part of the room, but then realized that it was probably because of the lighting. Why was this particular room so red? I wondered, curiosity eating at me. I tried to peer closer, twisting my body so I could only steal glances from the room with my head, but luck ran away from me at that point as one of my hands slipped from the railing. I gasped in both fear and shock, so I clutched the window like my life depended on it. It really did. I stifled a scream and started panting louder, trying to catch my breath. My both legs were down already. I could barely hold my whole weight with just one sweaty and slippery hand. My heart was beating so loudly, I could hear it in my ears. Help, I moaned in my mind, scared out of my wits. Before I knew it, a firm hand grabbed onto my free hand and hurled me with so much speed and force, I was pulled into the red room and ended up falling on a rigid body. I was lying on an unknown person with the firm stone, hard frame, still trying to catch my breath. I raised my head up and my eyes met with the deep violet eyes of no other person than my mate. My thumping heart literally stopped for a moment. Our gazes locked, and time sped by slower than ever. Third-person point of view. After leaving the other alphas and every other person back at the throne room, Alpha Zyke went straight to his office. It wasn't even noon yet, and today was becoming more bothersome as hours ticked by, he thought, walking into his office to take care of some pack issues. The next time he raised his head from the piles and piles of documents he had to sort out, it was evening already. He got up, flexed his muscles, and strode to his room, throwing off his clothes and going to take a shower. After the shower, he put on only his joggers without shirt and sauntered into his red room, which was like a secret room inside his royal suit. The room where he found real pleasure. A pleasure only 1 in 100 females in the realm could give to him. BDSM. Normal regular sex could never equate to this. That was why he had promised himself to make Heather his Luna if she could do scenes with him. But he doubted it. Heather looked like a weapon Argo is trying to use against him. Anyway, he had to try, look for something, for someone, anyone, as he was slowly losing his mind. But he didn't just do it with anyone. Most she-wolves aside, the rankless ones are strong-willed wolves. Well, it would be fun watching those will break in pieces, but he didn't have that time. Someone with extremely submissive traits was what he needed now. No one knew about this side of him. No one. Curtis is guessing, but isn't entirely sure. Trisha, his foster sister, doesn't. No one does. The room smelled of dust and trapped heat, so he opened the windows and curtains for air to come in. This was the 6th floor in the castle. No one could really see or hear what was going on in the room, as he created the walls to be soundproof and the lighting red. It added to the enigmatic vibe of the room. Alpha Zyke. As I walked around the room dusting silver cuffs, my collection of whips, a weird sound caught my ear. I stopped what I was doing to listen more carefully and realized it was coming from the side of the window. And it wasn't just any kind of noise. It was the sound of panting, breathlessness, and I could sense anxiety from whomever it was because it was close to me already. I ducked to the side to hide from plain sight as it was too late to shut the window without being seen. Soon the panting increasing, and then a noise from the railings. A slim hand suddenly drops from nowhere and started dangling in front of the window, dawning on me that the person beside that window needed my help. I don't know why I felt that way, but it felt natural. Instinctively, I held on to the dangling hand and pulled the person in with forceful speed because one wrong movement, and we'll have a body dead from shattered bones today. The impact sent me sprawling on the tiled floor with my back and with the light-weighted person crashing on my body along with me. I drew a long breath to be able to steady my breathing quicker, but a strong familiar smell wafted into my nose. My skin tingled in a way it hadn't before, and all of my senses came alive. Slowly, I raised my head to look at the person lying on my body to be sure I wasn't imagining things. It looked like a female, and she was panting hard, and she had an ebony dark hair. She lifted her head, and as our eyes met, trapping me in her sea-blue gaze. Yeah, my senses were right. It was her, my half-blood mate, Emma. After literally throwing me off his body when the realization that I was the one finally hit him, he stood up and went to shut the window before coming to face me. Escape plan ruined. "What the hell are you doing, half-blood?" He growled at me menacingly. I was getting used to it already. "Were you trying to escape?" He continues with an elevated eyebrow. I shook my head vehemently. If I could speak, I would have told him I was going to the library, but what was this red room for anyway? I wondered, turning around to feed my eyes. A 4-poster bed with pillars stood at the middle of the room. Different kind of whips were arranged in a glass closet glued to the wall. Long belts, restraining handcuffs police use to arrest criminals, were lined in another section of the closet. The room smelled of leather, wood, and dust. I had no idea what some of the things in the room were called, so I simply stared in awe. And of course, the huge presence of my mate in the room was too much to ignore. I really wanted to know what all these things were for, and why he was here. Does he own them? Or were they some kind of things used for ritual in the werewolf kingdom? Alpha Zyke snapped his fingers, dragging me out of my daze. He was standing close to me, so close his delicious smell made my head swoon. I wanted him so badly, despite how infuriating I found him, and I knew he wanted me too. And he was fighting our attraction because of what I was, who I was. Those romance novels I've been reading all my life weren't as complicated as this. The male and female meets, fall in love, fight for their love, and then lives happily ever after. Here my male is fighting what he's feeling instead of fighting whatever is standing against us. Maybe my life was always destined to be complicated. He strolled around the room confidently, looking thoughtful and sexy without a shirt, while his jogger stopped below his 6-pack sexy belly. Ashley humped around, telling me that she could feel his wolf too. Then why was he acting like a stranger to me? If he had made any attempt at accepting me, even in the tiniest bit way, maybe I wouldn't be thinking about running away. You know, you would have been dead by now if I wasn't here. His deep, animalistic voice drew me out of my thoughts. Was that concern I hear in his voice? "Don't you ever try this again," he growled from behind me. "Do you hear me?" I nodded feverishly, feeling scared and aroused at his dominating attitude. "You became mine from the moment you crossed that border," he continued, looking like he had suddenly lost his mind. "You're mine, half-blood. Let that sink in." "I'm not yours, I wanted to say so badly." "You can't own by keeping me locked up in a room and bring in people to keep an eye on me like I was your prisoner or something. You can't own me by hiding me like a disease. You have no idea what I want to do to you," he whispered this time around and turned me to face him. I gasped as I gazed into his glowing eyes, so dark, his violet pupils had almost turned black. They were saying words of need and want, words his mouth weren't saying. He grabbed my both hands tighter and held me flush to him, dipped his head to reach mine, and took my mouth into his. My breath caught in my throat as butterflies resurrected from my abdomen, flapping furiously in my stomach. His lips felt so soft and appealing, they claimed not only my lips but my soul as well. My knees weakened, and it felt like all the bones in my body had turned to jelly. I wanted to feel my hands on his skin, but couldn't because his hands were tightly curled around my arms. And the deeper the kiss went, the tighter he held me in. I moaned weakly as his tongue worked its way expertly inside my mouth, wanting more. I knew I couldn't fight this. It was as though my heart and body was all his since the very day our eyes locked. But he stopped all of a sudden, dropped my arms and looked away from me, raking his hands through his hair. Confusion struck me first, and then embarrassment. He was toying with me again. I felt unwanted. I mean, if the only person who is supposed to want you more than anyone in the world doesn't want you, Just how worthless can that mean you are? Go! He growled, his back still turned against me. Leave here, right now! A tear streamed down my eyes as I walked out of an open door which led me to a bigger room. This one had no red lights and strange accessories and didn't smell of dust and woods. The room looked brighter and smelled of him. But it all made me feel nauseated as I dashed out of the place, to my room, my prison. I wanted him. What was so bad about me that he wouldn't want me, I thought, quickening my steps, almost not noticing or minding when I bumped into someone on my way out. Alpha Zyke. I was slowly losing my mind, I thought, pacing around the red room restlessly. As much as I tried staying farther from her, she somehow found her way back to me, causing me to let go of my resolve, just like what happened a few minutes ago. I held her in my arms and didn't want to let her go. I had to fight so hard to detangle from her. Though she was trying to escape and almost killed herself in the process, why should I be so concerned, so scared that she might get hurt? Succumbing to this self-sabotaging feeling, this curse called mate bond was going to be the end of me and my hold of the realm. My father ostracized any werewolf who dared have any affair with a vampire, other alphas before my father killed even. How could I, the king of all alphas, claim someone with a vampire blood with open arms? If revealed, my subjects are going to cause an uproar. Those power-hungry alphas would use it as a weapon against me to take the throne away from me, my lineage, and I would never let that happen. But I couldn't let her go either. My soul craved her. My wolf was connecting deeper to her as days went by. If she leaves, I could go mad and Black would go completely feral. I'm tired, Black, I said to my wolf. I'm playing a dangerous game that wouldn't end well with whatever side I chose at the end of the day. Black ignored me and continued howling. Ashley. He grunted silently. Who was Ashley? Wait, was that her wolf? Her wolf had a name and was that close? How is that even possible? A half-werewolf isn't supposed to have a wolf as the legends wrote. I only thought I and Black could feel her wolf because he was her mate and her wolf was buried deep within her. I stormed out of room, coming to a decision that would help me get rid of the feeling I had for her. If I could get sick of her, then the mate bond wouldn't be that effective, right? I would make her my submissive. And then she would be nothing more than a scene mate. All these attachments and emotional roller coaster would drain off from me. Someone banged on my door, so I quickly closed the door to the secret room and let down the curtain concealing it and making it look like there was nothing there. I threw on a shirt and opened the door. Of course, it was the only person in the whole realm who would have the audacity to bang on my door. Trisha. She breezed into my room in her usual sunny manner, sat on the couch and curled her legs in. She was the last person I wanted to see at this moment. What do you want, Trisha? I asked weakly, suddenly feeling exhausted from all the emotional roller coaster. It's Trish, she rolled her eyes at me. Well, I came to see my brother since the 6th floor and 5th floor are now as far as Red Pack and Green Pack. It's Red Forest Pack and Green Forest Pack. Trisha, and that doesn't explain why you are here, though, I scolded gently, even though I was glad I could see her anyway. Trisha was abandoned at our doorstep as a baby, so my parents adopted her and made her part of the royal family. She was inconsolable when my mother, the Luna Queen, died some years back. I have come to love her fiercely as the only family I have in the world, even though she could be a pain in the neck sometimes. I've missed you, she sneered. Looking up from her phone, is that not enough reason to want to come seek for my big brother? I missed her too, truth be told, but a lot has been going on, so I haven't been able to meet her or go see her. Besides, she was just a floor from me. Cut it out, Trisha, I said, striding towards the door. I need to run. Been a while I let Black out. Oh, she snorted, still sitting comfortably on the sofa. Talking about running, a female bumped into me on my way here, but continued running without acting like she bumped into someone. I couldn't even see her face. Just her hair. I think it was black. She said offhandedly at first, but then started smirking crossly at me. My muscles tensed at Trisha's words. What was I thinking when I asked her to leave like that? I was so caught up in my emotions that I forgot she might be seen coming out from my room. I could never let Trisha know about her. Wait a sec. She got up and walked to where I stood. You did something to her, right? And who was she anyway? I thought you'll stop bringing in random females now that you're about to be married off. I swallowed, trying to seem as natural as possible. She's no one, Trisha, I chorused, feeling my blood rise. She's no one and nothing you should concern yourself with. And I'm not about to be married off. Well, if she isn't, why do you look so tensed up? She walked around me with her hands on her lower jaw. Now my curiosity have been piqued, brother. Who is she really? No one, I repeated between clenched teeth before marching out of the room. She caught me. Trisha knew me more than anyone else in the world, so she would know that something was up. But I would never allow her get involved in this. It was my cross. I would carry it alone. I left the room to escape discussing further about her. I headed down to the forest behind the castle. Shape shifted into black and started racing like crazy through dead leaves and shrubs with the unsettling waves of the sea, roaring loudly like my troubled heart. She's no one. She's no one. I kept on repeating in my head like a life-saving mantra. Emma. It was as though I was destined to be locked up for the rest of my life. After being locked up for 18 years back home, here I was again, locked up and even watched like a criminal, hidden even. I would never give up on my plans of escape. As long as my mate didn't want me, there was no point staying back here like a nobody. After all, he was the only person my heart is familiar with here. And somehow, I came to realize that the mate bond was the reason we are here. Ashley felt the pull and made us come all the way to a place we were never accepted. She was calling on her mate last night as I tried to sleep. Black. That was what she moaned till I slept off. It was early in the morning. I stood at the window watching people in black and white uniform down there, walking about, cleaning the floors, while some were trimming and watering the colorful, luscious flowers. Everyone was busy in the castle except me and Carla, who was deeply asleep on the couch behind me. If she wasn't my new personal maid, she would be among those busy people downstairs, I guess. She had no idea I left the room yesterday. She only came to meet a sheetless and quiltless bed, and I wasn't in the mood to explain anything to her. I came back to the room before she did, bringing me so many books I wasn't sure which to start from. She even noticed my different mood and tried to cheer me up and, of course, know what happened, but I still couldn't trust her, so I simply ignored her. My father, I wondered how he would be feeling now. Not knowing where I was or how I was faring would make him feel so heartbroken, and I don't even know. My heart squeezed at the thought. How would he even cope without me? My mother left us, and I did the same to him. I had to go see the Alpha, I decided. I knew his room already, and I'm done cowering like a spineless insect. I was going to tell him to let me look for something doing at the very least, or I won't stop trying to run away. Knowing my way around the castle was going to give me an advantage when I finally get the chance to escape. Of course I won't stop trying, even though he listens to me and get me something to do, which I doubt he would 100%, but I just need to try. I picked up the notepad and pen they gave to me and crept out of the room quietly so as not to wake up my watchdog. I observed the hallway, and to my relief, none of those stuck-up stewards were in sight, so I walked quickly to the last door in the hallway, about 100 meters from mine. At the door, I drew in a long breath before knocking. But nothing happened, so I knocked again, still nothing, and after 3 tries, I nudged the door open and it gave way easily. My heart skipped a beat. I had no idea the door was open. It's okay, I muttered to myself, knocking before entering is basic courtesy. There was no one in the room. As soon as I entered, my eyes went to the family-sized bed close to the wide slide window before scanning the rest of the room. Empty. But his blissful smell was everywhere in the room. I inhaled a lungful, knowing he was inside somewhere as I could feel his presence. I closed the door behind me, leaned on it, and waited. In less than a minute, he, in quote, sauntered out of probably the bathroom because he only had a white towel wrapped around his waist. And boy, he looked stunning with tiny drops of water dripping down his chest, his hair all wet covering his forehead. His high cheekbones looked less intimidating at this point, making the vulnerability of his sexiness beyond endearing. "Focus, Emma," I yelled at myself, snapping out of my drooling daze. It wasn't my fault, actually. It was Ashley's. She's an old whore. What are you doing here? His asked with a pissed voice, standing meters apart when all I wanted at this moment was to clung hard to him and never let go. But instead, I took out the jotter and started writing down what I was doing here. I tore out the part and handed it to him. It said, "I don't want to be locked up anymore. Let me find something doing, or I'll keep trying to run away. It's not like anyone would recognize me as your mate when they see me." He read it with a smirk on his face before squeezing the piece of paper irritably and tossing it away. "Where did you come from exactly, half-blood?" he asked, tossing off the towel to reveal a really tight boxer shorts. "Human realm," I wrote on the note and raised it for him to see. "Well, you should have stayed back there." He started putting on the same type of clothes I saw on him the second day I came here. "Sports clothes? How can you think I would ever allow you move about here? Are you insane? You can't even speak or socialize, and any wolf with stronger senses would notice you are not a full werewolf just from looking into your eyes." He stopped what he was doing totally and marched towards me in bare feet. "Listen to me, half-blood," he started with full resentment in his eyes. "You know what would have happened if I didn't get you out from that dungeon? I'll leave you to guess. Look, I've already taken a chosen mate, and she would be living in this castle starting from today. Don't mess things up by thinking of coming out. Stay where you belong." I stood upright, staring straight into his eyes, forcing myself to speak, trying to say something, anything, but instead of words, tears streamed down my eyes. I twirled around quickly as the tears came, not wanting him to see how much his words crushed me. "If you really want to be useful to me, stay in that room I put you in. Remember, you're now my mistress and submissive, and you do not have a choice," he said with a gentler tone from behind me. I had no idea what the hell he was saying, but I wasn't interested in hearing it, so I left his room, sobbing all the way to my prison. What the fuck does a submissive mistress mean anyway? I entered my room, banging the door noisily, not caring that I was going to wake my watchdog up. And she did, waking up with a startle and wiping the drool off her sleepy face. "Did you leave the room?" she asked in alarm, and then noticed my teary face as I ignored her and walked to the window. She got up and came to stand behind me. "Emma, I'm going to be in a lot of trouble if you leave this room, please," she muttered. "I'm a rankless wolf, so my kind are treated worse than others, and if we fail to do what we are told, we would be punished." "I just can't trust you, Carla," I wrote on the notepad, staring down at the flowers below. I didn't have the will to sign right now. "You came here because of what you stand to gain, and to watch me. Why should I care what happens to you while I do what I want?" I handed her the jotter and watched her face melt while she read my words. She clutched the pad and turned to look me in the eye. "That's not true, Emma," she muttered as if she was about to cry. "When I met you, I was glad that it was you. I don't know you, but I liked you. Yes, I'll gain a lot, but it doesn't change how people sees me based on my wolf rank here." "Then why are you meant to keep an eye on me?" I signed, tethering between anger and pity. "Wait." Her eyes shot up. "It was the idea of Stewardess Roth. She told me to keep an eye on you and watch every of your move. She told me that before we came inside. I think every wolf is curious as to why the alpha would keep a strange female in the 6th floor." We both fell silent. Something didn't feel right about the Roth woman. I mean, why would she look out for me so well and still ask Carla to watch my every move? The alpha's demands, maybe? And what exactly is so special about the 6th floor anyways? When she saw that I wasn't ready to say anything, she continued, "But I wish for us to be good friends. I don't have one, and I'm sure you don't either." "Don't you have a wolf?" I signed with an easier gesture to show I wasn't mad at her anymore. "No," she signed back with a sad smile. "Rankless wolves don't. We can't even shapeshift because our inner wolves are weaker. What about you?" "Yes, Ashley," I replied, and her face lit up in amazement. "How's she?" "I haven't seen her yet. I can only hear her, but she's troublesome, a handful, seriously." Carla laughed heartily. "I can hear you," Ashley grunted in my head. "So can we all be friends now? I promise I'll never tattle on you. You can trust me." She promised solemnly, and I found myself trusting her. Her eyes were void of conceit. It looked like the look in my father's eyes, I folded my arms around my chest and stared thoughtfully out of the window for a few more minutes before facing her. "So what do I stand to gain as your friend?" I signed with humor. "Well," she trailed, a mischievous twinkle in her eyes, "I'll take you round the castle and even the library without anyone knowing. What do you think about a masked ball?" Her phone chimed from the sofa, cutting her short, but I was already feeling a bit excited. Ashley was jumping around, beyond thrilled at the sound of a party. She grabbed her phone and her expression fell. "It's Madame Gosh, she's asking for me. I'll be right back," she waved and dashed out of the door. I wonder if I could trust her, but how much of a choice do I have? Alpha Zeke. Sorceress Gosh and Curtis walked into my office after I finished telling the stewardess what I would do to her and that rankless wolf if Emma ever came out of that room again. She did twice under their surveillance. At this point, she could really escape this castle without any of them lazy and dumb asses knowing. I knew she hated me. I knew she was hurt, but I want her and I know she wants me too, just in a different way. And somehow, I could not get rid of the guilt I have been feeling since I saw the crushed look in her eyes this morning. I didn't only see it, I felt it. The sorceress and my beta both stood in front of my desk with their head bowed as I asked the stewardess to leave. "You may raise your heads," I commanded, and they both obeyed. I could feel both of them seething with anger from where they stood. "Your chosen mate is here, Alpha," Curtis started. I knew he was trying not to talk through clenched teeth as he usually did before I became the Alpha. We were best of friends then. Nothing changed, though, just status. "She has settled into her room, which is next to Trisha's room at the 5th floor, as you instructed," he continued. "Now the hybrid female can leave." Gosh's frail voice rang out almost immediately. "She is a danger to this realm, especially the part of being your mate. She is your weakness, and that is exactly what they are all looking for. We know a chosen mate would never be like your real mate, but uneasy lies the head that wears the crown, my lord." She wasn't angry or sad. She was concerned, and so was Curtis. I understood their concerns, but I wasn't sure I could take their counsel this time around. I got up to where she stood and placed my hand on her slumped shoulders. My mother asked her to look out for me before she died, and the sorceress has been everything, including a mother to me, since then. The wizard realm threw her out for her unsolicited counsel to their king, so my father took her in since then as part of our realm. She could read minds, foresee dangers, make healing herbs, create portal to anywhere in the world, and give wise counsels. My father allowed her do all of the above asides the mind-reading thing. Unless given written or spoken consent, she was never allowed to read anyone's mind in this realm, but most wolves loved her either way. "I understand your fears, sorceress," I said, squeezing her shoulders gently, "but I'll be fine. I got this under control, trust me." She sighed and shook her head. "How long do you plan to keep her here, then?" she asked, gazing questioningly into my eyes. At this point, she would know if I am telling a lie or not. "Soon," I smiled down at her, then turned to face Kurt. "Put Heather in charge of preparing the ball for our charity this year. Let's see how well she handles that, and of course, keep her busy," I instructed Curtis with a grin. The atmosphere was too gloomy. Nobody died for Chris Aches. But my grin couldn't fool Kurt. He simply nodded. The sorceress left the office, saying she had some errands to run, leaving Curtis and I in the room. "Let's lose some sweat tonight, Kurt," I say lightly, walking back to my desk. "I'll meet you at the sparring room by 7 tonight." He nodded without saying a word, bowed and left. He knew I only sparred when I had a lot on my mind, and today I had more than enough on my mind. I drowned myself into work till it was few minutes past 6. I left the office, went to take a bath and change clothes in my room, deciding I was going to have a late dinner after sparring. I walked past her room to the elevator on my way to the sparring room. It took great effort not to go inside and check on her, but I would not let her think I care. And her personal maid was in there. They might start trying to put the puzzles together if they saw me with her. Having her stay in my floor was enough. Kurt was already at the sparring room when I arrived. He's got to be the most punctual wolf I know. The sparring room was situated at the back wing of the castle, merged with the gym, so it was huge enough to contain a good number of training wolves. Most members of the Red Forest Pack came here to train, but the center closes by 6 p.m. with exception for the Alpha, of course. Without much ado, we took our wooden sword and started sparring. He was going too fast, persistently attacking without defending. That wasn't his style at all. "You're angry at me," I stated the obvious. "I told you I got this, Kurt. Chill." "What if she hurt you?" he panted, hitting my wooden sword away from my hand. He was being too sensitive, but I wasn't going to hold it against him. "I'm the Alpha, Kurt," I breathed, picking up my sword and positioning for another round. "Even if she can, she won't. I'm her mate, and she knows it. She's a mixed blood, Alpha, and we have no idea what she is capable of." He puffed, dropped his sword, and sat on the floor. "Well, the sorceress might have an idea." I dropped mine and sat down as well. "Does Trisha know what's going on?" He turned to be tiny beads of sweat dropping from his hair. He had a crush on Trisha since when they were teens, but was too afraid to tell her because he believed she was too unpredictable, and he wasn't sure I would approve of relationship between the both of them if at all she agreed. He knew how protective I was of my kid sister. "No, she doesn't, and I intend to keep it that way," I said, knowing he understood I meant he shouldn't tell her about it. "You know she hates it when you keep things from her, more so something as important as this." A subtle warning was etched in Kurt's voice. I knew that more than anyone else, but she would have to forgive me this time. "That's on me, Kurt. You don't have to bother your green head about it," I joked, hoping to draw a laugh out of him. He chuckled, looking more at ease than he did when I came in. I stood up and gave him a hand in getting up, so we walked out of the sparring room together. "You should go and see your chosen mate," he drawled. "She kept asking me when she would be allowed to see the Alpha." He continued with a tone of mockery. "That you were literally boiling with fury when I agreed to take her as my chosen mate, Kurt. What changed?" "Let's say I was nursing the hope that your mate was out there somewhere," he replied. "But after finally seeing who she was, I realized the devil you know is better than the angel you don't know. She may not look harmless, but she isn't. At least we know what Heather is capable of. We don't for the half-blood. I'll see her on my way up. Fuck," I cursed under my breath. "Thanks for the heads up. And for the records, she is not yet my chosen mate." I rolled my eyes before the both of us parted ways. He lived at the 4th floor of the back wing with his own stewards. I believe we both felt better after the sparring, and somehow he understood me better now, I thought with relief, as I ambled towards the so-called chosen mate's room. Third-person point of view. "Have you seen him yet?" Alpha Argo spoke up as soon as Heather picked up the video call. "I just arrived here, Father," Heather grunted impatiently. "They already talked about all these before she left home in Green Forest Pack. How could he start pestering her when she only arrived a few hours ago?" That was the thing with her father, Heather thought. He was too ambitious and extremely impatient with everyone around him. "Heather," he leaned forward from his seat so his face was almost touching the screen of his phone. Heather almost laughed out loud. "I didn't send you there to look pretty for that son of a bitch, daughter. I sent you there to be my eyes and ears in that castle, get into his head and tame him." Her personal maid, Dane, flinched. She brought her from her pack so her mission would be easier. Dane knew how much of a handful her father could be most of the time. He didn't bother to ask her how the place was, if she liked my room, and all that type of questions a regular father would ask their child. And of course she hated her new room. Not a single color, white and bland like a haunted house. Thank goodness she brought her stuffed toys with her. "I know, Father," Heather replied calmly. "You have told me already, and I know what to do. Have some faith in me." Heather wanted the Alpha for herself, not in the way her father wanted. She had always been in awe of him, drooling for him since they were teens. His good looks was just too ethereal, like he was meticulously sculpted by the most skilled god of beauty. On top of all that, he was the smartest among all of them at the Wolverine Academy they all attended back then. Even his name made her heartbeat change pace. Zyke, ZYK, Zeke Hyde, Heather Hyde. She blushed impulsively at her imaginings. She would do anything and everything to make that come true, she vowed to herself silently. She would take him, make him hers alone, and then give her father what he wanted. Her father wanted the crown, of course, but he also knew it might not work, so he wants her to bear a son for the king so the rulership can continue from out lineage. Sounded like things that happen in historical dramas. Heather, are you there? Her father's voice dragged her from her crazy reverie. Yes, father. We don't have time, Heath, her father continued, because according to my informant at the castle, there's something going on at the 6th floor. The alpha might be keeping a female in his floor, but we have no idea what she is to him. You have to find that out too. What floor did they put you? 5th floor, Heather frowned deeply. If that was right, that female, whoever she was, wasn't as desperate as her. She was ready to snap the neck of the whore who dared to come close to her alpha in a heartbeat. She was aware that the only flaw her longtime sweetheart had was promiscuity. He changed girlfriends like sneakers, but never for once gave her even a second glance. She idolized him all through high school, but he didn't even know her name. So, how would she toy with an opportunity of a lifetime to finally get him to look her way? I've got it in control, father. She finally spoke, but father was glaring at her doubtfully. I doubt that, Heather, he sneered. If you had it in control, you wouldn't be placed on the 5th floor. I just got here. Exasperation was getting the better part of her. How much of a choice do you think I would have as to where I would be sleeping? She slapped her face in frustration, sick of their banters already. She had more important things to take care of, like the yearly realm ball she had been put in charge of. Making it a success was a must for her, as a way to show she could be a supportive and good Luna Queen. Thankfully, she had learned all about event preparations as a skill for a Luna, because somehow her father had always had a plan like this since the day she was born. Find a way to live in that 6th floor, Heather? Do you understand? Her father demanded authoritatively. There was a knock on the door. Heather sighed, grateful to whoever it was, because that intruder literally came to her rescue. There's a knock on the door, father. Let's talk later. Bun, she chorused and ended the call. Her mind toyed with the idea that it could be the alpha, so she ran to the dresser where she had already organized all her makeover kits to put on some more makeup. Her exasperating talk with her father must have wrinkled some part of the makeup. She brushed her hair feverishly one last time and whispered at her personal maid to shove the clothes into the closet fast. She drew in a long breath, straightened her already straight, shapely blue gown, flexed her mouth and smacked her lips together to make sure the lipstick spread perfectly. What if the person knocking wasn't the alpha anyway? She wondered, rolling her eyes at herself. But it didn't matter, she decided. At least the person would see how dazzling and well-ordered their future Luna Queen was. The knock came again. Open the door, Dane. Heather whispered to her personal maid, who left what she was doing, and rushed to open the door, while she sat on the couch with a random book, opened and placed on her laps as if she was really engrossed in the story. Dane bowed instantly as she saw who the knocker was, opening the door wider for him to come in. Your Grace, she said in reverence, and went out of the room to her bunk at the steward's quarters. Her lady would send for her if she needed anything. Alpha Zyke was greeted with a nauseating female perfume as he sauntered into the room. His so-called future chosen mate was staying now. This was the first time he would be speaking to her, even though they all literally grew up together. Fact is, he never liked her, but he reckoned she would be more useful to him than his mute mate. The maid who opened the door went out as soon as he walked in. Heather was sitting on the single couch close to her bed, obviously absorbed in the book sitting open on her laps. She raised her head up as soon as she saw him, a wide smile appearing on her face from nowhere. My lord. She got up abruptly, not minding that the book she was reading fell on the floor. She bowed, stretching her palms to Zeke in a courteous and ladylike manner. It is an honor. He pecked the back of her hand lightly, wishing she would drop all the formalities. After all, this was the 21st century, and they might both be sharing the same bed soon. She looked prim and proper, standing about 10 feet tall, even without the fake height under her soles. Everything looked fake anyway. Even her golden blonde hair looked too perfect and unreal. Her flawless features and excessively red lips. Black snorted and looked away. She wasn't the tiny, fragile-looking female with an unruly dark hair and soft, pale pink lips. "How do you like your room, Heather?" He started casually after she dropped her hand to her side. "Perfect, my lord," she uttered with her head still slightly bowed. She stole occasional glances at him whenever he looked away. He could hear her heart beating faster than usual. He knew the effect he had on females, so it wasn't new. "You sure?" he asked with a raised eyebrow. "It's looking kind of bland to me." He looked around the room with blindingly white walls. Females loved more colors as far as he knew. But overall the room was comfy. The large bed, huge closet, beautifully carved dresser with attached mirror. Emma didn't have one in her room, he noted subconsciously. "It is great, my lord, I love it," she replied robotically. "Whatever then, Emma." Carla came back with breakfast and a long, sad face. I was on the sofa, reading one of the new James Hadley Chase she brought to me yesterday. She came and sat beside me while I dropped the book to ask her what was wrong. "Emma, I'm not sure our little mission would be possible anymore, though. The stewardess yelled at me for not keeping an eye on you properly," she muttered. I just stared at her in alarm. That was my chance of running away, vanishing into the thin air. "Are you related to the Alpha or a distant secret relative who was born in another realm?" she asked perceptively, all of a sudden staring at me straight in the eye. "No one is allowed to stay in the 6th floor. That was why I was really excited when I was told I would be coming here. Even the Alpha's sister don't stay in the 6th floor, and they make it look like it's an abomination for you to come out of this room." I looked away, wishing I could really tell her how bad my situation was at that moment. "I know it's not in my place to be curious, but it's impossible not to be," she continued, looking down at her laps. "I just want you to know that if you leave this room and they find out, I'll be in a whole world of trouble." I'm in bigger trouble myself, I thought. Not to sound like an inconsiderate person, but Carla can always be forgiven if I escape. However, staying here wouldn't make my mate want me eventually, and my father needed me. "I'll tell you when the time is right, Carla," I signed, trying to cheer her up. "But I really want to hear about the ball you were talking about before Madame Roth called you." "Oh," she said a little more brightly, "it's our realm's full moon ritual. The grandfather of the present Alpha made the gathering more like a party or ball so people would mingle more comfortably. Werewolves from all 12 packs in the realm gather together every year, and most young adult wolves are able to find their mates there." Wow, that sounds really huge, I thought. "So everyone can attend the ball, right?" I signed, not minding that my food was getting cold. "Not really, Emma," she said with a sad smile. "Until the present Alpha, rankless wolves were not allowed to attend because most of us are busy doing one menial job or the other. But Alpha Zyke changed all that, though. He announced that all wolves are allowed to attend, including stewards and maids, ranked wolves or rankless ones." Her words about the kind deed of my mate melted a part of my heart. He wasn't all bad after all, but only to me. But why are rankless wolves treated with such contempt here anyway? It's not like they had a choice to be born the way they were, so why treat them like lesser than regular wolves? I mean, their lives are already hard enough being unable to connect with their wolves and all. I signed with an irritated gesture. "Sadly, most of us have gotten used to it," she chuckled in a dry manner that didn't reach her eyes. "And that's why we adore the Alpha, while other Alphas and many ranked wolves all over the realm hate and detest him." I couldn't help but chuckle. I detested him as well, but it was for a totally different reason. "But I'm curious anyway. You're Alpha," I signed. "How is he like?" "Well," she corked her head thoughtfully, "he's aloof, and like the proudest wolf in the whole realm. Well, it's a given, though. He's young, he's drop-dead gorgeous, he's rich, and he's the king of all Alphas. But I feel amidst all the aloofness, he is kind and really considerate. He's just being the way he is mostly because he haven't found his mate yet after so long of waiting. I feel bad for him." I laughed out loud in my head, wondering how Carla would react if she ever finds out that I was the so-called mate their darling Alpha was searching for. They might never know because he would never come out to his realm that he had finally found his mate. "Anyway," she continued, balancing her own food tray on her lap, "we hope this new chosen mate thing the Alphas suggested to him makes him happy. even though I don't like the she-wolf they chose for him. I was about to start eating my own food, but her words made me lose my appetite completely. I wasn't curious. I didn't want to hear about him taking another female when I was here. I don't want to feel this way, but jealousy made my blood boil. And Carla looked like she was going to continue talking about that crap. I dropped back the tray of food, determined to change the topic before I lose it completely. So how do we get to the ball, Carla? I signed, feigning excitement. We are not just going to sit back while everyone have fun out there, right? You know we can't, Emma, she said after chewing the chunk in her mouth. For one, I'm not yet 18, so what's the point? Also, they are keeping a really close watch on you, closer one now that you left this room twice. I would not let all that reasons deter me, I thought. I must learn the blueprint of this castle. We can use disguise, I suggested. You said it's a masked ball, right? Yes. She suddenly cheered up and started chewing faster. That's a great idea, Emma. The mask doesn't help in disguising much, but we would be using new costumes and attend the ball like totally different people. She shrieked, her green eyes glistering with excitement. Hold up, Carla. I stared at her suspiciously. Why do you look this excited? Is there something I don't know about? Well, I haven't met my mate, but I was hoping to meet my crush there. No way, I giggled. I have never had a crush before and have always wondered how it felt, especially when you are also your crush's crush. Hoo. I signed with urgency. I would have been shrieking too if I could speak. Mint. She said the name with burning red cheeks and uncontrollable smile. He's the Gamma, and I know I shouldn't be having such high expectations, but I can't help it. He's like the firmament with an arousing bad boy vibes. Though all the other females at the first floor likes to argue that the alpha is more gorgeous, but to me, Mint is the only man in the world. It sounded as though I had turned on a talking machine, but she looked so excited when talking about the Mint guy. But what about the guy with the green hair? I asked, wondering who he was following the alpha about. He's the beta, she started a bit calmer. He is Mr. Goody Shoes, kind, innocent, humble, and smart. He doesn't have the bad boy vibe like the alpha and gamma. I've never seen the Mint guy before, though. I signed even though I've only been out of this room the day I came in, and the other days I sneaked out. Oh, he's not around. He went for a free medical community outreach at Blue Forest Pack, but would be back before the ball. He's a doctor. I planned to approach him that day, but the mere thought of talking to Mint makes me feel like I'm going to lose my fucking mind. I think I'll pass out that day. She beamed so much I was scared her cheeks would fall off. I let out a soundless laugh. Carla was so funny, and I'm sure the Mint guy would be more than entertained. I hope more that he can look beyond her rank and see how much of a simple-minded and straight female she is. However, for all those to be possible, we have to make sure our sneaking out is perfect, or else she would be in lots of trouble. So how do we get the costume we would be needing, I asked, as the only voice of reason we both have. Also, how do we sneak out perfectly and quietly without getting caught? I really don't want to put you in a tight spot. Oh, don't worry about that, Emma. She paused and drank water from one of the bottles she brought. I'm not called the mistress of mischief for nothing. The only problem is we would have to get there later than others, and it's one of the many benefits of being my friend. She grinned mischievously. I grinned back at her, suddenly realizing I had finally found a friend. Although we have completely different personalities and she knows so little about me, but to me, she's my friend. The first real friend I've ever had in my life, and the first person excited to be my friend. One more thing, she rubbed her jaw, staring at me intently. Before I pick out your costume, I need to know one thing. Is there anyone you hope to impress at the ball? I sat quietly for some seconds, totally lost on how to answer that question honestly. I initially wanted to go to the ball so I could know the routes of the castle when I finally complete my escape plan. However, my mate and his new chosen mate would be there, and I'm not sure if I want to see them together like that. I shook my head to indicate a no, and Carla's pretty face fell. I wonder if she would be this way with me when she discovers I have the blood of her realm's biggest enemy flowing through my veins. Well, she tried to cheer me up. We would have to make you look prettier nevertheless. The night of the ball. Alpha Zyke. The hall glowed with silver lights from the golden chandeliers draping from the high ceiling around the room. Recognizable faces, even though they were putting on masks, of alphas, lunas, betas, and gammas from different packs filled the hall, as well as other members of the Red Forest pack. They were all dressed sophisticatedly like the dignitaries they were, not minding how intimidating it was to the rankless wolves who were brave enough to come. Alpha Zyke wondered sometimes if his decision for the rankless wolves to attend the full moon ball was the right thing, because most of them were nowhere in sight. The ball looked well-planned and organized. Besides that, Heather did a good job, he must confess, he thought, as he strode into the hall with her arms linked in his. She was beaming excessively in an animated manner, with layers and layers of makeup on her face, giving her a doll-like look with a red mask that matched the color of her dress. Not to talk about the dress she was putting on, a fitted bodice, which flared at the waist with a floor-touching skirt. The material was all over the place on the floor, and one wrong step, she'll be smashing the front of her head on the hard tiles. It wasn't like they were having a wedding tonight. He came minutes later than everyone else, so the party was already in full swing, and people were already mingling, exchanging pleasantries, and having probably their third glass of champagne. I enjoyed this particular ball a lot, especially before becoming the alpha, but somehow tonight felt empty and mundane, as if something was missing. Of course it was. I haven't set my eyes on Emma, my half-bold mate, for a whole week, even though we lived in the same floor. She was doing a good job of staying away like I wanted, but why do I feel so dissatisfied? It took all the will in me not to go into her room and crush her fragile frame into mine. I was craving her so badly, I haven't been able to touch any other female since she came. And even Heather came to warm my bed countless times, but I turned her away at the door. Deep down, I was scared I might hurt Emma if I touch anyone else. She looked so frail and welcoming guest of honor to officially launch us into the annual full moon gathering. Mint, the Gamma spoke into the microphone from the stage. With a standing ovation, let us welcome Alpha Zyke Hyde with his soon-to-be Luna Queen, Heather Strove. Let's stop thinking about her, Black. Mint was back. There was no better way to announce his arrival than this. He wanted to make me laugh, but I kept a straight face, striding to the podium to address the people of the realm. Everyone stood up and bowed their head as I walked past. I detached my hand from Heather's and went to give Mint a big hug before beginning my speech. I was about to start my speech when my nose caught the whiff of a familiar smell, a smell I have missed and longed for. My eyes instinctively darted around the hall, searching for the dark hair with purple beads, even though I was aware that it was simply impossible for her to be here. Great, it had gotten to the point of me hallucinating about her. Get a grip, Zyke, I chided myself. Everyone was still standing with their drinks in hand, waiting for me to finish my speech and make a toast. They had no idea the amount of turmoil going through my head. Alpha? Curtis called my attention in our mind link, bringing my mind back to the job at hand. Is everything all right? I nodded without looking at his direction, cleared my throat, and began addressing the crowd, skimming through words so I could get it over and done with. I finished faster than normal and signaled the orchestra to start playing. Males and females paired themselves in twos and began waltzing to the slow melody of the music. As I stepped down from the podium to go search for the familiar smell that was driving me nuts, Heather sauntered in front of me, blocking my way with her animated smile. May I have the first dance? She courtesy, stretching her open palms to him. If my lord pleases. I stared at her with ripe disgust. She was trying too hard. Later, Heather, I said casually as I walked past her into the crowd of dancing couples to search for the one my heart was calling for. I strode through the throng of people who stopped and bowed as soon as I walked past them. The smell was getting stronger as I was nearing the exit of the hall, but I couldn't find any female with a dark, short hair. Everyone here was wearing a mask, but I would recognize people I knew in a heartbeat, especially her. Mine! Black howled with burning desire, jumping all over the wall of my head. She is close, I thought, still looking around when my eyes caught a petite, red-haired female in a pale blue dress standing in the midst of the crowd. We were standing few meters apart from each other, but our eyes locked, and her china blue eyes, which shone brighter with the black mask, drew and held me in. She didn't bow to me instinctively like everyone else. She simply stood and stared stoically, looking stunning in the light blue dress that stopped below her knees, matching with the color of her eyes. Her skin looked as pale as her dress. There was just something endearing about her. It wasn't really her looks, it came from within, like a diamond in the rough. I could feel the strong pull towards her, but this wasn't right. The half-blood wasn't red-haired, she never had a lipstick on, she would never be able to come out of her room with the number of people I put to watch her, and she never had the nerve to look me this straight in the eye without cowering. But the stranger's eyes were as blue as hers, and she smelled of lemon and red velvet like her. What were the odds of this stranger being Emma? If she wasn't my mate, then why was I feeling such an irresistible pull towards her? I decided to find out. I would never get answers by continually asking myself the same questions over again, so I took a step towards her, but a younger male from the crowd walked up to her first, bowed slightly, asking for a dance. Black growled possessively in my head. She smiled at him and every nerve in my body froze. I realized that if that was the half-blood in any way, then this would be the first time I would be seeing her smile, and it was exquisite, and it made my blood boil with jealousy. She had never smiled at me, but here she was smiling at a stranger. The tall male stood closer and stretched out his hand to her while she glanced at me one last time before placing her hand on his, and he dared to wrap his hands around her waist? Their bodies were even touching. I clenched and unclenched my fist in rage, feeling my chest rumble noisily. I gazed at her possessively as another male danced around with her, smiling down at her. I was losing control to Black. He couldn't hold it in anymore. Neither could I, but if I went close to them with this anger, I could hurt that male. I drew in a long breath and marched towards them, dragging her hand from his and walking out of the hall with my hand firmly wrapped around her arm, ignoring the shocked stares I was getting from everyone. I couldn't care less. They had no idea what was going on in my head. Few hours before the ball. Emma. Carla and I had concluded our plans of attending the ball before time. She was full of mischief and more meticulous than I expected. She literally stole all the costumes, wigs, and makeup we used to change our looks. She even knew how to style someone to perfection. I couldn't recognize myself after she was done with me. We had to change our hair color, so I picked a red hair. I had always imagined how it would look on me. My mother was red-headed. It was part of the very few things I could remember from her features now. Her face faded away slowly from my mind as the years went by, even though my father sometimes said I was an exact copy of her, aside the color of my hair. I took that one from him. Sadness washed over me at the thought of my parents and how tragic their love was. I would never ever want to go through what my dad went through. I don't think I would ever be capable of dealing with such intensity of pain. I felt bad through the week as I couldn't see my mate. He never bothered to come check on me even for once. The feeling worsened the day I heard a knock on the door, and when Carla opened it, it was the flawless face of a golden blonde-haired female. She was all beams and smiles, saying she was looking for the steward, but I hid beside the door so she wouldn't see me, and Carla was smart enough to not let her in. She even asked Carla if there was someone else in the room, but Carla lied for my sake. And after she left, Carla told me she was the Alpha's new chosen mate, but she felt the Alpha deserved better. But she's pretty and elegant, I signed, confused. I know, but she would never be like his real mate. She scoffed. Besides, true beauty isn't usually on the surface. Some people can have perfect physical features, but within, they're rotten like the worms in a beautiful apple. She had no idea how, but it cheered me up. That was one of the things I loved about Carla. She had a way of making me feel better, even though she was completely unaware of why I was sad, or if I was even sad at all. I was extremely good at masking my feelings. Not Carla, though. She's as transparent as crystal. You could see through every of her emotions, and I honestly wish I could be that way. I had to learn to hide my feelings from a young age, so as not to make my father worry. And now I couldn't bring myself to imagine how worried he would be. The color of my eyes changed to red all of a sudden, bringing my mind back to the present. I closed my eyes quickly, then opened it again, and thankfully the color was gone. It was blue again. To my relief, Carla didn't notice as she was putting a finishing touch on her makeup, with her back turned facing the other side of the room. We finished sooner than we anticipated, and that was because our clothes were ready and waiting before today. I wonder how Carla pulled it off, but the dresses she brought for us were simply splendid. Mine was a pale blue dress that is fitted through the bodice and hips and gradually flares. I didn't really have an hourglass or pear-shaped body, but it looked good on me, even though this was the first time I was putting on a real dress to attend a real party. It was something that had always happened in my head and never in reality. It's finally time to put the sneaking out plans in action, Carla said suddenly, and I realized I didn't know when she stood in front of me. Life of an overthinker. I stared at Carla, bamboozled by how different she looked after the dressing up. She looked like a real lady, beautiful, elegant, and dazzling. Her pretty smile added to the charm. She wore a shiny black, Align-fitted dress that stopped at her toes, with red heels an inch lower than the one I was putting on. Her main disguise was the blonde hair. She looked so different with the hair, makeup, and elegant dress, I was 100% sure that none of the people she worked with before would recognize her. "You look so gorgeous, Carla," I beamed at her. "Go get mint." She giggled and patted my hair playfully. "I never knew red hair and simple makeup would look so good on you, Emma. We're so gonna have fun tonight." We both raised our hand and gave each other an excited high five. "How do we leave without being seen?" I asked. "I have it all planned out," she replied, and then gave me a rundown of her plans. It sounded credible and smart. According to her, there is a stairway beside the elevator that people use when the elevator is faulty, but she can't remember the last time the elevator has ever been faulty, so no one would be using the stairway, especially today when most stewards would be attending the ball. We would be using the mask when we come out in the open, so no one would really be able to tell who we are. "What if the stewardess comes to look for us?" I asked, because she always came every night after dinner to check if I was inside. I was worried Carla would be in trouble if the stewardess discovers we are out, but Carla, the mistress of mischief, already had a plan. Since the party starts by 7 p.m., we would turn off the light in the room and leave the floor by 10 minutes past 7. Carla brought some more pillows from the first floor, so we arranged it on the bed and covered it with the quilts to look like we were sleeping. The nosy stewardess wouldn't want to turn on the light, because to her, we are sleeping, so after opening the door and seeing the swollen bed, she wouldn't even have a single trace of doubt. Brilliant, I thought, laughing inside my head. Ashley was getting hyped. I could see her now in my head, but I still wasn't sure if I could really shapeshift. Carla said the alpha and some other werewolves shapeshift by midnight to commemorate the end of a lunacycle. She said most she-wolves, especially the high-ranked ones, hate to shapeshift so as not to ruin their meticulously made manicures. How petty. Our sneaking out plan worked perfectly, as not even a soul was in the stairway, and all we hoped for was for our trick on the stewardess to work. Left for me, I couldn't care less. But I would never want to see Carla in trouble. I would escape this prison, just not today. I felt like a real female for the first time in my life. I looked like one, and tonight I was going to act like one. I almost gasped at the sight before me as Carla and I sauntered hand in hand into the ballroom, or better still, ostentatious hall. Lights filled the hall, from expensive-looking chandeliers to the lights coming out from the walls. Everyone inside the hall looked like dignitaries with the way they were dressed, and even their mannerisms screamed class. Females looked stunning in their superb dresses, while the males were looking hot in tuxedos. But we blended in easily to my surprise. We dressed even better than some of them. I blended in physically, but couldn't help still feeling like an outsider. Carla didn't act surprised or nervous at all, even though this was also her first time attending the ball. She had been practicing how to walk, talk, talk and say hi to people for the whole week. It had kept me entertained, somehow forgetting my own predicament for some time. She held her head high, her purple mask shiny like her dress and her red lips. She called her makeover style smoky, and it made her look like a queen. She wasn't cowering like the other rankless wolves we met on our way here. No one would recognize us, hopefully not even my mate. As soon as we walked into the ball, my eyes instinctively started darting around looking for him. I wanted to ask Carla, but knew she would start suspecting something, so I simply shut my mouth. Also, I didn't want anyone to know I sign. Someone here might know I was the one just by doing that. After all, the alpha wasn't the only one who knew I was mute and could sign. So Carla and I agreed she would do most of the talking. The party had started already before we came in, so we were handed 2 glasses of white liquid which Carla called champagne. She sipped hers elegantly and told me to be careful, that the drink could make me intoxicated easily, so I simply held the glass on my hand like a duty. I had to be clear-headed tonight. We took our seats on one of the lines close to the exit as I noticed Carla's head turning here and there, and I knew instantly who she was searching for. We both sat quietly, not bothering to mingle and say hi to others like what the rest in the hall were doing. I wondered when the alpha would get here, or if he was here already, but I couldn't see him because of the crowd. But I couldn't care less. I wasn't looking for him. I tried convincing myself, causing Ashley to scowl at me. However, about 20 minutes after we came in, the crowd turned their attention at once to the door, spiking my curiosity. I turned to see what arrested everyone's attention, only to see my mate, the alpha, at the entrance with the golden blonde-haired hand linked with his like a new couple. The crowd seemed awed by them as they all stood up to give their alpha a standing ovation. Someone spoke up from the stage of the hall, welcoming the alpha and his soon-to-be Luna Queen. My heart sank. I clutched the material of my cloth with a death grip. Tears threatened to fall off my eyes, so I blinked rapidly to push them back. Carla didn't notice to my relief. She was gazing sheepishly at the person on the stage, while my eyes was fixated on my mate, with the drop-dead gorgeous female, according to Carla. The female beaming proudly in her flawless face and red gown, which flowed freely to the ground. If I didn't know better, I'll say they were walking to the aisle to make their vows. It seemed likely, I thought bitterly, as a lump formed in my throat. They looked perfect together. He, the Alpha King, while she looked like she was born to be a queen. As the crowd cheered and clapped, I wondered what exactly I was doing here, why he would keep me here when he had someone else already, someone perfect for him. Beautiful, elegant, graceful, and a complete she-wolf. And of course she could talk. Not a half-breed mute like I was. That was why he could show her off to the world this way, even though she wasn't his real mate. I remained glued on my seat and stopped looking at them, sobbing in my head with Ashley, who continued howling mournfully, "Emma." After the Alpha's speech, an orchestra started playing. Everyone around us paired themselves up and began a slow dance on the dance floor, while I continued staying glued to my seat, regretting my decision to come here. Maybe I don't need to be clear-headed anymore, I thought. The glass containing the white liquid was on the table beside me, so I picked it up, and without thinking twice, I downed all the content into my mouth. Ah! It tasted strangely bitter, but not as bitter as my life right now. I gulped down the liquid into my throat, and a warm feeling spread across my insides. I wanted another shot. "What are you doing, Emma?" Carla's voice was louder than usual, probably because of the blaring music. She dragged the cup off my grip. "Too late, my friend," I thought, sneering. "Is something wrong, Emma?" she asked, looking down at me with a concerned face. I shook my head enthusiastically with a wide smile. Her face adjusted after that as she smiled back. I was glad she didn't notice the torment I was going through. "Great, then," she said, and then dragged me up. "Since you're feeling so good, why don't you go and dance?" I shook my head in alarm. I don't even know how to dance, but Carla was obviously not taking no for an answer. "Off you go," she tried, shoving me to the dance floor, but I clung to her hand like my life depended on it. She frowned and dropped my hand. "Whatever you're going through, Emma, just remember that you came here to have fun. Let go of all your thoughts and enjoy this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And talking about once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, Mint doesn't have a dance partner right now. I better go take the spot. I nodded with a forced smile and shoved her to the way she had been glancing at since, the guy on the stage who welcomed the Alpha and the future Luna Queen. I snorted at the memory. But Carla was right. The Mint guy was good-looking. He had a dark hair with shades of gray strands mixing perfectly. He was tall with a rugged kind of handsomeness. I was sure he would look better in a simple jean and polo instead of the white tux he had on. That was the same guy Carla was going to ask for a dance? She was indeed fearless. I don't know many rankless wolves, but I was cocksure she was more daring than all of them put together. More daring than even a ranked wolf. "Go, girl," I said in my mind and then patted her on her shoulder encouragingly. Mute people are great with gestures. You wouldn't even need their words at some point. Carla nodded, drew in a long breath, and without a single trace of doubt in her eyes, she sauntered majestically to the direction the Mint guy was. "Fighting, Carla," I said behind her. I was left alone once again, standing in the midst of already paired dancing couples. However, I felt less heartbroken or scared. The drink I took a few minutes ago was doing something to my inside. Our mate, Ashley, shrieked as we caught his strong smell. It only meant he was close by. I twirled around to see him standing few meters from me. It was definitely him. His endearing masculine smell that my nostrils were so familiar with, his jet-black hair intricately sleeked back with few strands cascading generously down his smooth tanned forehead, and his deep violet eyes darker behind the dim red mask. It was really my mate, but did he recognize me the way I recognized him instantly? I wondered as my heart thumped loudly in my chest. He stood like he was glued to the spot, staring at me in a longing but confused manner. What was he doing down here anyway? The last time I remembered seeing him was on the stage with his future Luna Queen. Why was he here staring at me? There was only one answer to that. The bond, the pull drew him here. And we both stood gazing at each other like it was just us in the room now. Does that mean I have been caught? My cheeks were heating up, and he wouldn't stop gazing deep into me, so deep I was scared he could hear my thoughts. While I was contemplating on how to run away, a young brown-haired male dressed in blue suit came and stood in front of me. He bowed slightly in an awkward courtesy, asking for a dance with his hands stretched out. I hesitated, knowing my mate was watching, but the male stood hopefully before me, so I was like, "Fuck it," and sent my mate a last glance before resting my hands on the brown-haired male's hand. My own mate came in here with his arms linked in the arm of another female. Who cares who I dance with anyway? I finally focused on the young male in front of me, following his steps slowly. Dancing wasn't even as hard as people made it look anyway. My dance partner wrapped his hand around my waist and drew me closer to him, causing me to stiffen momentarily, but he didn't notice and just went on waltzing. I hoped my mate had already gone back to his future Luna. I wasn't the Emma he could lock up and abandon tonight. I was a young and carefree female who was having the fun of her life. But before I knew it, a strong hand drew my arm away from the young male, and as I looked up, it was my mate. His eyes was blazing in fury with his jaw clenched tightly. He looked like he wanted to do something worse to the young male, who stood shocked to the bone with his head bowed completely. The Alpha wrapped his palm around mine and dragged me out of the place, ignoring the stunned stares from everyone around us. I was still trying to process what was going on. Did he know I was the one? Why couldn't he just look away and go to his future queen? My mind was overworking as we walked out of the exit with his hand still firmly holding onto mine, but I must confess, it felt so bloody nice. The mate bond was obviously too hard to ignore. Third-person point of view. Heather Strove watches with pure contempt as her chosen mate's eyes stayed glued to a tiny red-haired female who wasn't even close to her beauty-wise. He turned down her request for a dance because of that female? She burned with resentment, seething from where she stood, but there was nothing she could think of doing at this moment to drag him away from her. Her father, Alpha Argo, glared at her from the other side of the hall. "Go get your man, Heather." He mind-linked her, but before she could make any move, she saw the Alpha drag the red hair out of the hall towards the exit. She froze, stupefied by what just happened, and clearly wasn't the only surprised person in the hall, but the alpha ignored the gasps and glowers coming from the members of his pack. Heather furiously stumped out from the hall through the other exit at the back of the stage. "The alpha is mine," she chorused repeatedly as the cool night breeze pierced through her exposed skin. Carla felt giddy with excitement as Mint accepted her request for a dance. She hoped fervently that she wouldn't slouch and ruin this moment, something she had been practicing for since the whole week before. She placed her hand on his shoulder while he held onto her waist tentatively. They both began to waltz slowly, completely unaware of everything going on around them. Mint smelled of the minty flower that grew in the garden of thorns, the easy smile on his face causing butterflies to flap around her stomach. He hadn't said a word since they started dancing, but she hoped to hear his beautiful voice, even though the thought of him speaking to her made her nervous as hell. He gazed into her eyes, the grayness of his eyes undoing every fiber of her nerve. She wanted to tell him she liked him. She wanted him to do to her all the things he could do to a female he loved. But he was just seeing her for the first time, and Carla was sure he couldn't care less about her after tonight. Because after tonight, she would go back to being a dirty, brown-haired, rankless she-wolf and not a high-born female with blonde hair. He might find his mate soon, and she would never even be a passing thought in his head. Then Carla decided she was going to tell him how she felt once and for all. Accept the rejection and move on, she said to herself. One more thing, though, she needed to be a bit more tipsy to let her thoughts out. Thankfully, one of the ushers carrying a tray of drinks was passing by, so Carla stopped dancing and took 2 glasses. She handed one over to her partner, Mint, who declined, saying he doesn't drink alcohol. With a mixture of surprise, nervousness, and numbness of hearing his voice, Carla downed the whole content in both glasses in a matter of seconds. Mint stood back laughing down at her and asked to her surprise, "Do you want to get some fresh air?" His gray eyes glistered in the lights. Of course she wants to get fresh air as long as it was with him, Carla thought, though, nodding enthusiastically. He took her hand in his and strode towards the stage to the other exit. Carla felt like she was going to pass out from the thrill of Mint walking beside her. And soon they would be alone together. It was like a dream come true. The alcohol was already making her tipsy. Now she can spill her gut to him if possible. The goal now was to confess to Mint, kiss him, and forget about him after tonight. She knew she would never be able to get his attention ever again after tonight. But she was going to make him hers for the whole of tonight. And that should be more than enough. Alpha Zwijk. After my exchange with my little mate, I went back to the ballroom to announce the beginning of the shifting ceremony. Here in the werewolf realm, we believe we all evolved from the moon goddess Diana, and the moon as her strong source of connection to us. The moon protects us, the moon sends us rain and sources of living. So after completing its cycle for about 28 times in a year, that is 12 moons, the next full moon that comes out is what we call the blue moon, and it is the 13th moon. When the clock hits midnight, that is a new day. We stand under the full moon, shift into our wolf form, and howl into the sky in unison as reverence to the moon goddess for sending the full moon to us once again. The shifting was compulsory for every present werewolf at the ceremony when my father was the alpha, but I realized later that some people don't feel the connection with the moon during that period. However, most alphas or betas or gammas or even regular wolves feel the connection deep down in their bones at midnight, so shapeshifting occurs even without their permission. That's one of the few times our wolves can come out and take most of the control with or without our consent. So when the clock struck after my announcement, most of us came out of the ballroom and shapeshifted. However, some other wolves, especially most she-wolves, didn't shapeshift. Not that they couldn't, but shifting can be painful for people who are not used to it. And some, like my so-called chosen mate, simply don't shift because she doesn't want to ruin her nails, and mostly because she doesn't feel much connection to the moon. Also, some of the securities are rankless wolves, so they cannot shift. Nevertheless, this year's shifting ceremony was going to be different, and I didn't see it coming. After most of us shapeshifted, we gathered under the moon in a clearing we called the Cycle and began howling into the sky. While we were howling, Black, my wolf, suddenly sensed the wolf of our mate. He looked at the angle the feeling was coming from, only to see the half-blood staring at him from a distance. She was really waiting for me, I thought with satisfaction. As their gazes locked, a female came and stood in front of our mate, blocking our view of her. I tried to get my mind off her and concentrate on the job at hand because at this point, the energy from the moon was getting stronger and stronger. So was the feeling of my mate's wolf. Strangely, she didn't give off only the wolf vibe. There was an unfamiliar aura that came with feeling. Black couldn't help it, so he looked again, only for us to see that our half-blood mate has been replaced by a medium-sized golden wolf. Black gazed at her, stupefied and stunned. She was the most beautiful wolf he had ever seen. Her fur was so golden, it radiated under the moonlight, giving it the color of the sun's rays. Her hazel eyes shimmered with pure affection, focused on us, and before I could stop her, she started running towards us. Black felt warm all over, but I was scared for her. I noticed a longer and sharper canine at the side of her fangs. It was longer and sharper than that of even an alpha lichen. She had unknowingly drew attention to herself. It dawned on me that she also felt a connection with the moon. That was why she could shift that way, even if she wasn't a complete werewolf breed. I tried to mind-link her to stop, but I couldn't get access into her mind. And worse still, she was approaching the clearing in top speed. Now everyone's attention was on her, and I heard growls and screams from the crowd. "That is not a werewolf, it is a beast!" A voice rang out from the entrance of the ballroom. "It is going to attack the alpha, shoot it down now!" It was happening so fast, before I could shapeshift and command them to hold fire, one of the security men corked his rifle and fired. Without warning, the bullet hit straight into her stomach, throwing her off the ground. I wasn't fast enough to stop the bullet from touching her. Burning rage erupted from my insides. Black growled in terror, causing everyone to cower in fear. I shapeshifted back to my human form and rushed to where she laid, holding her in my arms. She whimpered weakly as her eyes grew dim, and all she grew weaker. Seeing her this way caused an excruciating ache in my heart. I could feel her pain deep within me, and even as she shapeshifted back to her human form in my arms, my chest burned with agony. Blood gushed out from her stomach, so pressed my both hands on the wound, putting pressure to reduce bleeding. I couldn't imagine how she was feeling right now. "Alpha, please get away from her. She could be dangerous." The same voice spoke up again, only for me to turn and see Argo standing close to the security guard holding a gun. The same gun responsible for all this. Fury swelled in me. I wanted to snap off the neck of Argo and the dumb guard. How dare they shoot at my mate? Another rumbling from my chest, louder than normal as Black was boiling with wrath. "We have to save our mate!" He growled at me, and I could see the raw pain in his eyes. I mind-linked Mint, my gamma, immediately, and he dashed to where I was as though he had been waiting for my call. I asked him to take my mate out of here to my room and get the royal physician to attend to her immediately. "Mate, sure no one is following you, Mint," I told him in our mind link as he hauled my dying mate into his arms and walked towards the back wing of the castle. He knew what to do. Taking through the front was going to bring attention to them and cause more questions. Also, as the Gamma, he had more connection with my mate than my Beta did, so he was the best person to protect her. After making sure that Mint had disappeared from view with her, I stood up and walked up to the security guard who shot Emma, and before he could say any word of apology, I knocked him off the railing to at least break a bone or two. As for Argo, his punishment would be severe, but definitely not now. Curtis was already behind me, begging me through MindLink not to do any harm to Alpha Argo, that it would cause an uproar as everyone was watching. He knew how furious I was and what I was capable of doing to that slimy and cunning wolf. "Apologies, Your Grace." Argo bowed, taking few steps backward as I advanced towards him. I noticed she is not a complete werewolf, but also sensed that she had the blood of a vampire. He said loud enough for everyone to hear, and the crowd went hushed. It was actually true what the Borders guards said about the creature they found. I thought she was about to hurt you, Alpha, so I commanded the guard to shoot her down. Because, as we all know, a vampire or a half-breed for that matter would always be a threat to our realm. He finished without raising his head up. He knew what he was doing. He had slowly planted fear and doubt into the minds of every wolf present today, and somehow it was not far-fetched to say he must have known the half-blood was my mate. But the question was, how did he know this much about something we kept a top secret? One thing was for sure, Argo was extremely smart, and it was possible he put the puzzles together on his own. However, he couldn't have done that without any help. And I would definitely find out who that help came from. I just hoped Emma was okay. If not, I would kill Argo with my bare hands. Nevertheless, this meant I would have to hide my mate all the more. My realm would never accept her as their Luna Queen. And that only meant one thing. I had to choose between letting her go and abandoning my throne. Two tough choices, but one must be made. Carla. Carla's mood was beyond forlorn. I mobbed the entrance to the castle's ground floor, thinking about what I had done or what could have happened by what I did. It was what could have happened that frightened me the most. And to think I didn't even know how Emma was feeling currently, neither did I have anyone to ask or any way to know. My heart broke for my friend, and it was all my fault. If I hadn't mentioned the full moon ball, Emma wouldn't have gotten interested, and she wouldn't be hurt right now. I scrubbed the stainless tiles repeatedly, wondering how I and Emma would be playing around and talking in the room up there if everything had gone smoothly. I would have told Emma how I had succeeded in kissing Mint, although that didn't matter anymore, because after last night I became nothing to him. And maybe Emma would come out clean to me about being the Alpha's mate. That was literally the highlight of the ball. To think I have been messing around with our Alpha's real mate without knowing even when the signs were brightly glaring at me in the eyes. She was my best friend, but I didn't know she was the Alpha's mate. She was a golden wolf, and she wasn't even a full werewolf. The whole realm has been going crazy since that night, wondering what has become of the half-werewolf, half-vampire. I couldn't care less about all that. I just want to know my friends is doing okay. I don't even know if she is still in our realm at this moment or have been taken out like the malicious folks in our realm wanted. Our dumb Alpha, who has been hiding a mate as wonderful as Emma, deserves to be the one hurting right now and not her. With the way he acted when she was shot, it only meant he actually loved and cared for her. But that doesn't justify him taking another mate when his mate was right there with him. I wonder how much pain she had to go through watching her mate with another female, all because she was a half-blood and a mute. She isn't any of that to me anyway. She is Emma and my best friend. Concentrate on your work, female. Heather's personal maid, Dane, yelled at me from the side of the entrance. She was the one assigned to keep an eye on me while I serve my punishment for allowing Emma come out of her room. I despised her already, including her bitchy mistress who kept clinging to the Alpha even though she knew he had a mate already. The dumb Dane who came here just a few weeks ago was feeling comfortable bossing me around. I ignored her and continued cleaning in my own pace. This so-called punishment was nothing compared to not knowing where Emma was or how she was faring at the moment. There was only one person I could ask, and that would be Mint. He was the one who took Emma out from the crowd to God knows where. I knew where to find him. Would most probably be at the back wing where he always trained with young guards and trainees, but I was 100% sure he wouldn't even care to attend to a lowly she-wolf like me. I wasn't Isabel anymore, the blonde-haired female he kissed passionately at the ball night, the female he told he wanted to see again. I was just Carla, the rankless she-wolf. Why would he even bother to even listen to what I have to say? "Hey, watch what you're cleaning, female!" A gruff male voice reprimanded me, dragging me out from my deep train of thoughts. Sorry, I'm so sorry," I repeated feverishly, raising my head to see who I had offended with my absent-mindedness, only to see the dark hair with shades of gray and a gray eyes glaring daggers at me. "Watch it," he said more calmly before walking past me without even a hint of recognition in his eyes. I felt crushed and disappointed, even though I should have seen it coming. How on earth was I expecting him to recognize me anyway? But the most important thing was me knowing how Emma was faring. So, without minding Dane or other workers around me, I dropped the mobbing stick and ran after Mint, who was striding towards the elevator. "Excuse me, Gamma Mint," I called after him, running as fast as I could. However, I didn't think he would stop immediately, which he did, causing me to bump into his rock-hard chest. I start chorusing countless sorries, peeling myself from him, which I wish I wouldn't. His smell was heart-stopping. "I'm good now, female," he said with a tone of exasperation. "You can continue what you were doing." His eyes weren't misty like the other night. They showed absolutely no emotions towards me. No, it's not that," I stuttered, feeling disoriented standing close to him this way. "What do you want, rankless wolf?" He stated the words in a way to remind me of where I belong, and it got to me. It hurt so much. But I wouldn't let that stop me from asking what I wanted. Emma was more important now. "Please, how is Emma?" I asked, looking straight into his eyes, willing him to remember me. "You took her out from the ball the other night, and I've been worried about her." He looked confused at first, but then a look of realization flickered through his eyes and later turned to disgust. "Who are you to ask after her?" He regarded me with an elevated eyebrow. "Her personal maid." I muttered. "Oh," he scoffed and shook his head. "Where were you when the half-blood was almost killed?" he asked with a cold whisper. Oops, I thought. Someone must have filled him in already. I stared at him speechless, but answering in my head instead. "I just finished kissing you, Gamma. She is not a half-blood. She is Emma, and she is my friend," I said aloud, suddenly feeling pissed that he would dare call Emma a half-blood. Emma. Carla ran straight into my arms, sobbing on my shoulder as soon as my mate left us. She folded me into a hearty embrace despite knowing I was the mate of their alpha king, despite knowing the blood of the enemy was flowing through me, despite knowing I was fooling her all these while. Her action told me she had forgiven me, hating herself for not protecting me and consoling me as my best friend. Carla wasn't like every other folk. My dad always told me how heartless and unforgiving my kind was, but Carla has got to be the kindest of my kind. She stepped out from my arms and started raising my clothes to see the angle I was shot, all the while asking how I was feeling repeatedly. I smiled, feeling myself go warm all over. I never knew I would ever find someone to love me so unconditionally asides my parents. "Carla, I'm fine," I signed, grinning down at her flushed face. "The injury is gone?" Her eyes widened in astonishment. I nodded, leaving her to go and stand by the window. I missed this room, the smell, Carla's consistent presence, and the view of the flowers and beautiful waves of the ocean. "Being a hybrid is not as bad as they paint it, though," she said lightly, coming to stand beside me. "It sure does have its advantages. Werewolves heal fast, but not even an alpha wolf would be able to get back up so soon after being shot, a wolf's bane." "Nah," Carla spoke up with a benign smile. "Your existence is not a taboo, Emma. You are a miracle." She paused and gasped loudly, her eyes like saucers. "Wait, does that mean you are immune to wolf's bane?" she asked rhetorically. Gee. I chuckled, knowing she wanted to ask lots of questions, but was trying to keep the tone lighter for now. I have to tell her everything. She deserves to know. "You can ask me anything you are curious about, Carla," I signed a bit more seriously. She stared at me with mixed emotions. She was curious, but at the same time trying to be cautious. "I want to know so much, Emma," she muttered, the smile leaving her eyes. "Like why you stayed back, even when he took a chosen mate when you are here. Do you love him that much, Emma?" I gazed down, pondering her question, thinking about how he treated me during this last few days, and realizing that how he had treated me in the past wasn't entirely his fault. But I was scared he might change again, bail out on me, and marry the Heather girl. "It's okay, Emma," Carla whispered, hugging me again. "You don't have to know the answer. You know. It's okay to be confused, and whatever you are feeling right now is normal." Her voice was so soothing, I started sobbing silently on her shoulders. I wanted to tell Carla that I love him. I need him, and seeing him with another female crushes my soul. I want to be with him and with my father as well. But I doubt that would ever be possible. His realm would never accept me, and my father was banished because he loved my mother, who was somewhat like me. What hope do I have? What if he loses his throne for my sake? Would he even choose me when it gets to that point? I wondered, as my sobs increased, so I had to hold on to Carla's shoulders for support. She patted my back softly without saying any words, and it was more than enough. The sobbing died down after a few minutes, so Carla held back, now facing me. "What do you plan to do now?" she asked with a sigh. "I'll leave." I signed with a heavier sigh. I don't want to get him into trouble for my sake, and also, I'm really worried about my dad and how he would be feeling now. It's been weeks since I left home without a word. My decision of leaving my mate broke my heart, but I understood it was really for the best. I would sneak out with the help of Carla without anyone knowing. Not even him. We haven't marked each other yet, so he wouldn't suspect what I'm up to. Carla nodded, a look of understanding in her eyes. "Who's you dad, Emma?" she asked. "My dad is Elgin Price," I signed, mouthing his name as well. He was the former beta here, but was banished when he refused to reject my mother, who was his mate, simply because she was a vampire. Carla wrapped my palm in hers, caressing me gently as she took me to sit on the bed. "That's so sad, Emma. So what about your mum?" I winced as the horrible image of the last time I saw my mother came crashing into my head. She was killed by assassins from the Vampire King right in front of me and my dad. I summoned the courage to say, a spear went through her chest to her back. Blood was everywhere. Carla and I was just 5. It has been me and my dad ever since then. "Oh my God, Emma!" Carla wailed, squeezing my hands more tightly. "I'm so sorry about that. You really have to go see your dad. I'll help as much as I can. I can't imagine how worried he would be now." Her eyes fell on her laps. I have never seen so much sadness in her eyes like this before. I had to change the subject. The atmosphere felt too gloomy, and it wasn't what I pictured coming to see Carla. "Carla, how was your time with Mint at the ball?" I asked. "I really want to hear about it, and I don't want us to be sad anymore." I thought the question about Mint was going to cheer her up, but to my surprise it didn't. Instead, it made her angrier. She was so excited to talk about it at the garden before Ashley came out. Honestly, having a wolf was like suffering from dissociative identity disorder, DID, MPD, especially when you have a wolf as spunky and stubborn as mine. "What's wrong, Carla?" I signed with concern. "There's actually no point talking about him," she cast her eyes down. "He would never recognize me, and even if he does, I'm 100% sure he would not give an F about my feelings for him." "You never know, Carla." "Trust me, I do. And he isn't the nicest wolf, seriously." She pouted her lips to show her resolution. I raised her face up so she could see my eyes. I wondered why she was so adamant. She really did like him. "You can change him, you know." I signed encouragingly. "I don't know if I would even get the chance." She mumbled and sat closer to me. "When do you plan on leaving?" "By morning," I replied, staring blankly into space. "I just want to be with my mate for one last time, only tonight. But first, I need you to teach me something." I signed a bit more excitedly now. What? BDSM, and what it means to be a submissive. Alpha Zweig. I stood in front of the beach house Curtis. Mint and I built ourselves with hard wood. We made it a wooden house, so almost every furniture in it was made of wood. The chairs, tables, shelves, bar sections, and the likes. Either of us could go there and relax when we wanted some time alone for ourselves. The peaceful scenery and the striking view of the sea was more therapeutic than one could imagine. But today wasn't one of the days either of us came to relax. I was standing in front of my father's beta, the father of Mate, my beta's uncle. No, it wasn't relaxing. He looked worn out, bedraggled, not like the Elgin Price I knew while growing up. I couldn't bring myself to believe he was Emma's father, even though the streak of resemblance between them was glaring at me. It shouldn't be a surprise, and if I had asked Emma about herself, I would have known sooner. I was too scared to ask, not that I didn't care. There were some werewolves who have been killed by alphas before me simply because they loved a vampire. My father was merciful enough to ostracize his beta because they were too close and he couldn't bring himself to hurt him. But here I was trying so hard to keep his daughter after all I put her through. My father made her father's life hell, and I actually continued from where father stopped. My head fell in shame. I couldn't bring myself to look at him in the eye, and neither could I tell him I was mated to his daughter. but he was like an enemy to me somehow. He wanted to take my mate away from me. I stared at Curtis, asking him what I could do through our mind link. "Give Emma back to him, please. Let them go." Curtis begged weakly, earning him an irritated growl from Black. "You're the alpha now," Elgin said with a calm tone. "So I'm sure you would know where my daughter is. I'm not asking to come back here. I just want my child. I have been searching for her for weeks. I traced her smell down here, and then he burst into muffled sobs, rendering me more helpless than I was already feeling. Then he turned to Kurt, grabbing Kurt's hand in his pleadingly, "Kurt, I know I'm not part of this realm anymore, but Emma is your blood. Please help me find her. She isn't used to being exposed to other people. The only person she knew in her whole life was her mother and I." Curtis' head fell helplessly as well. He owed Elgin so much, as Elgin was the one who took care of him after he lost his parents. And when Emma's father was banished, he begged my father to take care of Kurt. That was how Kurt became my beta, because he had the blood of a beta in him. So that was why Kurt couldn't say no, and he couldn't tell him the truth either. It was mine to tell. "Convince him to go and rest in your chamber, Kurt," I told Kurt in our mind link. "I will think of a solution by morning." And somehow it worked. Since he wasn't sure of where she really was in the realm, we could stall till tomorrow. Now my dilemma was if I should tell Emma or not. She deserves to know. He was her father after all. Kurt succeeded in convincing his uncle to come with him so he could freshen up and rest, that we would look for a way tomorrow while I walked back to the 6th floor, wondering over and over if I should tell Emma. As I got to the front of her room, it took all the self-control in me not to knock. I would just lose my resolve if I see her face, I thought, so I ambled to my room with a heavy weight on my shoulder. "Don't tell her, Zyke," Black said with a low growl. I ignored him, opened my door only to see the delicate form of my mate standing in the middle of my room with a bright smile on her face. I was so startled, it felt as though my imagination was playing a trick on me. I have never seen her smile widely to me, and it made my heartbeat accelerate. I swallowed hard and walked towards her, but was taken aback as she ran into my arms, hugging me so tightly. "Don't do this to me, Emma, please," I thought, feeling my member go hard at the feel of her skin on mine. She ended the hug and stepped back, raising her pretty slender hands to sign, "I think I know what it means to be a submissive." She didn't need to mouth the words now because I understood what her hands were saying. "I want to be your submissive tonight," she signed, and my heart melted into a puddle, third-person point of view. So, the Alpha had a mate all this while and we knew nothing about it? Alpha Argo asked rhetorically to no one in particular. Everyone in the FaceTime fell hush, deep in thoughts. They all knew something was off, but no one would have guessed what happened at the ball. "And to think that the so-called mate is not even a full werewolf," he chuckled dryly, walking around his office, not bothering to show his face in the video call like everyone else. "And that is not even the most interesting part," he continues. "The whole hullabaloo gets more intriguing at the part where the half-blood shifts into a golden wolf." He growled loudly, banging his fist on his wide mahogany desk. He was boiling with fury, and so was his wolf trump. Why couldn't his daughter be the golden wolf, or even the Alpha King's mate? To think the partial goddess gave all those luck to just one being infuriated him greatly. "She's not just any wolf, Argo," Alpha Abel from the Indigo Forest Pack commented. "She's the golden wolf, promised by the moon goddess herself, and for centuries we all gave up, thinking it would never come to fulfillment. That female would cripple our plans because as long as she is close to the Alpha, there's absolutely nothing we can do to him." There has to be something they could do, Alpha Argo thought silently as they all pondered on the words of Abel. They weren't just a bunch of brainless old wolves. There's got to be something. He laughed as a brilliant idea dropped into his head, while all his comrades gaped at him as if he had suddenly lost his mind. "There's actually something we can do," he proclaimed, and everyone came closer to their screens. "The prophecy is an old one, so I doubt if many of the realm members would know what her importance is, even Alpha Zyke. If he had known, he wouldn't have hidden her all these while like he did." He paused, a wicked grin spreading across his face. So what do we do? The Alpha of Grey Forest Pack asked, as though he was dying of suspense. I made the first move by planting a wrong image of her in the minds of other realm members present at the ball, so all we need to do now is add more pressure on the Zeke through the majority, make him reject her or look for a way to get her out of this realm. We can't kill her, so getting her out here is the only way. Everyone fell silent, thinking of a way. I doubt he would be able to send her away at this point. Abel spoke up again. As we saw at the ball, the Alpha's reaction to the half-blood when she was shot showed that he cared for her greatly. Alpha Argo laughed, taking his seat behind the desk to properly face the rest of his team. When push comes to shove, my dear Alphas, I doubt Zyke would choose her over his throne, he uttered wisely, and everyone nodded in agreement to his words. Wait a second. The Alpha of Blue Forest Pack, who had been quiet since the beginning, finally spoke up. What about the sorceress? I'm sure she would know about it, even though not immediately, but soon, because other realms would want the Golden Wolf to themselves as well, and we all know how close she is with the king. Deafening silence echoed from the group this time around. We would have to take her out then, Alpha Argo said icily. That old witch has lived too long, and she has never been part of us anyway. How do we do that? 3 Alphas chorused at the same time. I'll take care of the old hag before she get the opportunity to tell the king, Argo stated conclusively. Meanwhile, our priority is how to send the hybrid out of this realm as soon as possible. The Wizard King had a strange and unsettling vision. The golden wolf promised by the moon goddess have actually been awakened, and she was presently at the werewolf realm, mated to the Alpha King. He felt wronged. It all felt wrong. The moon goddess have always favored the werewolves more than any other supernatural creature since the beginning of time. That was why they had the nerve to take in that old hag after his father, the previous wizard kind, sent her into exile. No other realm would have the audacity to do that, except those savages called werewolves. They had the most physical strength and even more heightened senses than vampires. Their females were the most gorgeous among other females from other realms. Peter had always longed for one of the females he met the last time he visited the werewolf realm before the feud ensued. Heather. Gorgeous, ethereal beauty that shook him in his core. Don't tell me you are daydreaming again, Peter. The oldest wizard, Neil, grunted at him, snapping him out of his daze. He sat opposite him in his royal chambers trying to think of a way to get what they wanted. There's no point running round the bush. We have to get the golden wolf to our side to make our realm indestructible, and we have to do it as soon as possible. Sorcerer Neil's gray hair wasn't for show. He was really the wisest among every other wizard in the realm, and Peter was more than willing to follow his wise counsel. Even before he had the vision, the wizard had already seen the things his young mind was yet to see. We have a better chance now since the hybrid has not been marked by the Alpha, so we have to make a move now. But how do we do that, sorcerer? Peter asked timidly. An enemy of our enemy is our friend, Peter, he uttered with coolness, not bothering to address Peter as king since they weren't in public. The vampire king, Vladimir, is our only way out, the smart sorcerer continued. His father ordered the execution of the hybrid's mother, and they have been looking for the child ever since. Her father escaped with her, and we haven't been able to know where she was or what was going on with her. Peter was able to put the remaining pieces together no matter how dumb he was. The golden wolf is now unfortunately mated to that egocentric as Shoal, and they, with the help of the vampire leech, would get her out from there. So you see, my king, Neil let out a dry chuckle, the vampire king would be more than obliged to help us. Alpha Ziag. Black was growling ragingly, fighting for control. He wanted to knock down anyone trying to come close to our mate, to take her from us. Our possessiveness has become deeper and stronger now that he had marked her. I never intended to mark her, at least not now. But Black couldn't control himself when our mate was looking so delicate and fragile in our arms at that moment. However, she wasn't acting like that now, owing to the way she was thrashing and kicking for me to let her go. I could never let her go. She can't leave me. Curtis stood before me, trying to placate me, because he understood how much fury was burning in me right now. Alpha, Please calm down, he said, but my wolf let out a loud growl, causing my chest to rumble noisily. He took some few steps back, knowing the implication of standing against me or trying to go against my will. But I wouldn't hurt my mate's father. He was Curtis' uncle also. Nevertheless, I wanted him out of this place, far away from my mate, so she wouldn't ever conceive the idea of leaving me ever again. I want him out of here, Curtis, I growled at Curtis, who turned to my mate's father and started speaking in low tones, so I couldn't hear. He can't be my child's mate. Elgin Price yelled from where he stood. There was so much pain in his voice. Do you know how far I have gone to protect her from your kind? I am not leaving here without my child. You have no right, I bellowed at him, as he took 2 steps back, seeing that my eyes were glowing and my claws were about coming out. I was literally boiling. She is my mate, she is mine, and no one can take her from me. You father banished me because I was mated to her mother. My mate was killed because my people never cared about me. He broke into silent sobs. I wouldn't let them get to me. It was simply his way of trying to make me send my mate with him. A way to separate him from my mate instantly occurred to me. It was going to hurt my mate, but I would do anything to keep her at this point. You were never meant to come back here, Elgin Price, I said a little more comported, steadying Emma to my side with my right hand. I will not let the both of you leave here. One of you have to go, and the one who stays would remain my prisoner till I'm ready to let go, I pronounced, causing everyone's head to shoot up in shock, including Curtis. You can't do that. My mate's father almost screamed, but didn't look directly into my eyes. Watch me, I retorted emotionlessly. You have 10 minutes to decide. If you are not ready after that, I'll make my choice. Keep an eye on them, Curtis. I will be watching from few meters away. I instructed my beta, who nodded, looking like he would like to be anywhere else but here. I let my mate go to her dad, taking few steps away from them while watching every of their movement with hawk eyes. After more than 10 minutes, my mate marched back to where I stood with a death glare and started signing. I'll stay, let my father go, I heard her say, and a triumphant grin spread across my face. Good choice, mate. I leaned down so our face was almost touching. But I'll have to punish you for what you did tonight. Then I turned to Curtis, who was waiting for my instruction. Make sure you see him out safely from the realm, and send as much food with him as possible, as well as warm clothes. I concluded and hurled my mate into my arms, carrying her like a child back to my bedroom. I closed the door securely and took her straight to the red room. My member was hard already from all my kicking and struggling. I dropped her on the bed and stood above her, watching her glare daggers at me. You're mine, Emma Price. I grinned down at her. Or should I say, prisoner. I must keep her by my side no matter how selfish and heartless it makes me seem. My feelings for her was beyond love now. It was obsession. Carla. I stepped out of the castle at sunrise, worried about Emma. We had both agreed she would come before dawn so I could help her escape from the realm to find her father. I wondered what went wrong. Did she change her mind? Or postpone the plans? What exactly happened, Emma? I searched my mind, looking for an answer, and as I raised my head, I realized I had already walked too close to the seaside. I wasn't supposed to, because I was still on the matching jumpsuit pajamas I got for me and Emma. It wasn't all that revealing, but was inappropriate wearing out by this time of the day. My hair was in a bun, as I couldn't care less about brushing it. I finally picked a spot close to the riverbank, where I sat down, watching the gentle waves and feeling the morning breeze on my skin. You're her, right? A deep, masculine voice snapped me out from my reverie, causing me to jerk instinctively. I had to idea someone was beside me, or maybe he only just arrived. I must have been thinking too fat not to have noticed. I raised my head to see the owner of the voice, only to see the familiar gray eyes staring at me with recognition. My heart began a noisy and speedy thump against my chest. If he came 1 more inch closer, he would hear the sound of my heartbeat. You're her, right? He asked again, this time a little more loudly. I froze, wondering if he had finally recognized me. Her? Who? I heard myself ask. The rankless she-wolf with loads of nerve, he said with a smirk. You look different today. I almost mistook you for someone else. I sighed mentally. My cover was still intact. No need to panic, Carla. Breathe. I didn't know what to reply Mint, so I simply peeled my eyes from his face. He was the only wolf I like and loathed at the same time. Why are you sitting here all alone? Aren't you back with the hybrid? He must have remembered what I did to him the last time he called Emma a half-blood. Her name is Emma, not hybrid, I retorted, not in the mood to banter with him. So why are you here? He asked again. Nothing, just walking and found myself at the beach. He chuckled, displaying a chiseled and perfect set of white teeth. You might not really care, but I'm here because I'm searching for someone, he confessed, staring straight at the sea now, totally unaware of what his words were doing to the rhythm of my heart at this moment. I couldn't say a word, owning to the heavy lump suddenly forming in my throat. I met her at the ball, he continued without looking at me. And ever since then I haven't set my eyes on her again. She told me her name was Isabel, and all the Isabel seen after the night of the ball isn't her. Why are you looking for her? Wasn't it just a one-night fling? I asked before I could stop myself. He glanced at me with amusement in his eyes. I hoped like crazy he wouldn't see through me right now. I don't know why I'm telling you this, rankless wolf. He dug his beautiful feet into the ground, but I would love to see her one more time. I wasn't ready to part with her that night, and I've been left with a feeling of dissatisfaction ever since. I murmured incoherent words in reply. Also, I want to kiss her again. His last words spread unexplainable warmth all over my insides, and he was completely unaware. Emma, listen to me. Zeke sat close to me on the bed. I didn't want to listen to him anymore. He officially became the person I loathed most in the whole world. How could someone call you their mate and hurt you this bad? Just how? He had hurt me so many times, but what he did to me today hurt more than all of the hurts put together. When I was starting to love and trust him, my father was never wrong. My kind aren't trustworthy. He sat closer, trying to touch me, but I pulled my hand away. I hated that his touch still sent tingles through my body. It irked me the way my body responded to his, and I wished I could pull my skin out from my body so I wouldn't feel what I was feeling right now. Emma, listen to me, he said again, this time more fiercely. I have marked you already, although not intentionally. I should have asked you first, but I couldn't control the desires at that point. I rolled my eyes to show I didn't give an F about his reasons. He just sent my father away without my consent. Although I did give my consent, but it wasn't my wish. I've always wanted to be with my father when we finally reunite. What that means is I cannot let you out of my sight ever again. You became completely mine the moment I marked you. You can never reject me or leave me. If you do, I'll always find you. He concluded and left the red room, closing the door firmly after him. I was really his prisoner after all. This wasn't love or mate bond shit. This was pure egotistical obsession. I sighed, letting the tears flow freely. My heart ached as I wondered how my father would be feeling right now. I didn't even have the chance to ask him about his health, although I should be a little relieved that he would be leaving here with warm clothes and food, but that would never be like being with him, taking care and seeing to his every need. He must be so lonely. I opened my palms, revealing the sparkling blue diamond necklace my father gave me before we parted. It had the shape of a heart and shimmered brightly even in the dark. I remembered the necklace. It was the one my mother wore on me the day she died. According to my father, this necklace could help me reach the source of my powers. I wasn't just limited to werewolf or vampire supernatural abilities. I could do just about anything I put my mind to. It was the moon goddess's gift to my mother's generation, because an unstoppable supernatural being would come from their lineage. My father being mated to a vampire wasn't a coincidence. It was all predestined. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you all these earlier, my child. I recall my dad's voice quiver as he spoke. I was too scared. How ironic that all the things I feared the most happened at the end of the day. I have always known what you were, child. I didn't want to expose you to the world. I wanted to keep you safe, but I failed. I failed your mother. He burst into wrenching sobs then, folding my palms to his so tight. He was ready to give up his freedom for the rest of his life because of me, but I had to convince him that I would find a way for us to meet and be together again. It wasn't just a promise. I would make it happen. I had told him I was happy with my mate, but I wasn't sure if that was the case anymore. My dad loved my mum unconditionally, despite the fact that she was from the realm of the enemy. He loved her still. I never got that kind of love here, even though I was willing to give my love. A drop of tear fell on the heart-shaped diamond necklace I was holding, a new resolve forming in my mind. But something else was happening to my whole body. I felt a warmth in my throat that melted what felt like a lump there, traveling around my insides. My wolf howled. I felt stronger. Third-person point of view. I don't know what I'm doing here anymore, Dad. Heather shrieked furiously into the receiver. I did all you asked me to do. I have made myself look prettier, given you as much information as I could, but the alpha hasn't even looked my way since the ball. She wailed, pacing around her room, while her father tried to calm her down at the other end of the line. You have to calm down and be rational, child, Alpha Argo uttered calmly. Nothing good comes easy, and we seem to be having more advantage on our side. How, for goddess' sake, father? Well, it is extremely easy for someone with so much power at such young age like Zeke to keep making lots of mistakes no matter how smart he is. Her father chuckled dryly and continued. My informant from the castle informed me about the appearance of Elgin Price, the ostracized former beta of the late Alpha. Turns out he is the father of the half-blood. What? Heather exclaimed, shocked and convinced that her father was still up to his game. Since I have most of the alphas on my side now, all I just have to do is fish out the former beta, and we can use that to get under his skin. So how will you get the half-blood beach out of here? Heather asked impatiently. She could feel her adrenaline rushing. Soon, daughter. Alpha Aggro sneered. Soon. After I put some people and things in their place, you will get the position of the Luna Queen of the entire werewolf realm. For now, just keep an eye on Half-Blood as much as you can. We don't have much time in our hands. Sure, father, that wouldn't be a problem. I just hope to get the king's attention as soon as possible, she mused miserably. Don't worry, daughter, her father assured her. This is a chess game, and I'm aiming for the king's queen. Heather heard a knock on the door. As soon as she ended the call with her father, Dane, her personal maid, wasn't here, so she went to get the door herself, only for her to see the Alpha standing in front of her. She froze, her heart doing flip-flops at the sight of the only person that mattered most to her at this point. He strode into the room with his undeniable aura of dominance and poise. Heather couldn't believe her eyes. How could he appear right after they finished speaking about him? Or has her prayers already been answered even before doing anything? I'll go straight to the point, Heather, Alpha Zyke started, staring straight at her with a serious look on his dashing. You have to leave the castle. As you must have known by now, I have found my mate and wouldn't like to give you false hopes anymore, he finished, turned and left. The smile on her face melted into horror. Heather's world suddenly came crashing. Did she just hear him correctly? Fine, she thought. My father would have to carry out his plans quicker than scheduled, she thought vindictively. Alpha Zyke. I walked into the red room to see my mate, but she was already asleep. The windows of the red room were open, and there was no quilts on the bed in the room. She must be cold, I realized, so I hauled her into my arms and carried her to my main bed. I noticed a blue diamond necklace on her neck that was never there before. There was something familiar about it, as though I have seen it in a book or something. I was sure it came from her father. She didn't wake up, so I covered the quilts on her body to keep her warm. I lay beside her, watching her sleep like a princess. She was the best thing that had ever happened to me, but I couldn't help hurting her time and over again. I can't let her out of my sight. I can't imagine my world without her anymore. But how do I make my realm accept her? How do I force them to accept something even their ancestors have abhorred all their lives? What would be of me if I actually lose my throne? The questions were endless, but there was no one answer to any of them. I would have to meet up with the sorceress first thing tomorrow morning. It has been a long while I heard from her. I would be needing her wisdom for my situation, asides her suggestion of letting my mate go. I can't even do that anymore, even though I want to. I brushed some strands of hair out from her face and fell asleep while watching her sleep. I woke up the next morning, but my mate wasn't beside me anymore. I fell straight into panic mode, afraid that she might have escaped while I was asleep. However, the sound of dripping water from the bathroom put my mind to rest. I got up from the bed, waiting for her to finish bathing so we could have breakfast together. She came out wearing a large-sized robe, and before I could say anything, she walked past me, opened the door, and left. I followed to see where she was heading to and watched her walk till she got to her room and entered. Phew, I sighed in relief. Curtis' voice came up in my head. He was sounding extremely tensed, and I wondered what it was this time again. "Alpha," Curtis yelled in our mind link. "Sorceress Gosh's body was found at the beach this morning," he informed me. I could feel the shock in him from our connection. Liquid drained from my whole body momentarily. My heart sank, as it was still trying to process what I just heard. "What are you saying, Curtis?" I growled, feeling my blood rising. "She has been confirmed dead, Alpha," he said with a sorrowful voice. "And from what I'm seeing right now, she was murdered by one of us." Few hours before, Sorceress Gosh gasped in bewilderment as she woke up from her 48 hours-long trance. She just saw the vision, like a message from the goddess to anyone who cared to listen. And she just got the shock of her life. You see, she was an old wizard who has always been believed to be wise and never wrong. However, she was wrong this time. But she prayed with all her strength that she would be able to right all her wrongs. The golden wolf they had all been waiting for was finally here, but she was so blind she couldn't recognize it even though it was right in front of her. Alpha Zyke's mate was the long-awaited wolf from the goddess. However, she had no idea such special being would also be a hybrid. How wrong she was, how stupid she was. She had been misleading the young Alpha all these while, giving him the wrong information to send the golden wolf away. Goosebumps crawled out of her body as she shivered in trepidation. She had committed a grave sin, which she had to right at this moment. It was late already, but she didn't care. The palace was just a few meters away from her shelter. She had to meet the Alpha at once, so that instead of pushing the female away, they could devise means to make her stay. If she tell this to the people of the realm, they would certainly accept that female as their Luna Queen. Emma Price was meant to be worshipped, not to be hidden or punished. With this thought in mind, the sorceress grabbed her staff and marched towards the palace. She wished she would do the mind-linking thing like the werewolves. It would save her the stress of going up the 6th floor to see the Alpha. She would have just summoned him instead. As she walked along the bush path along the seaside, close to the back wing of the castle, she felt a prickle in her skin. The hair at the back of her neck rose, sending chills down her spine. The royal guards weren't at this side of the castle. Someone was following her, and she knew exactly why. When she sensed that the person was closer, she increased her pace. The moon wasn't out, so she couldn't really see how close the person was, but could sense it. As the person was about 3 meters behind her, she turned abruptly, hoping to catch the person off guard, and then strike whoever it is with her staff. But as she turned, a giant wolf, waiting for her to get distracted, pounced on her from behind, digging his sharp, long fangs into her neck. Sorceress Gosh let out a shrill cry for help as her magic staff fell from her grasp. She tried to push the brutal predator off her neck, but another one attacked her from the front, sending her sprawling into cold sand. Sharp claws sliced through her skin, her face, her neck, sending a numbing pain through her nerves. She had been under attack before, but never had it been this planned and intentional as this one. "Don't let her go, Zyke," was her last thought before her mind into a deep sea of painless darkness. Emma. Carla and I sat in my room discussing about Carla's plans for her forthcoming birthday. She planned to grant Mint's wish one last time on her birthday before she finds her mate for before he finds his mate. I understood her pain. Loving someone who has no idea who you really are could be heartbreaking, added to the fact that he could actually turn her down if he eventually finds out who she really was. So far, all the men I had encountered in the werewolf realm were big-time pricks, including her mate. I squeezed my best friend's palms encouragingly, telling her to follow her heart. We are all bound to face pain one way or the other, but it would be unwise to let the fear of pain stifle our ability to live in the present. The door of the room burst open. My mate strode in arrogantly like he owned the whole place, even though, logically, he did. I stood abruptly as signed for Carla to please give us a minute. She nodded, sending me a look of hang in there before bowing to the alpha and leaving the room. Before I could finishing asking what he wanted here with my hands, Zyke folding me into the tightest embrace ever. For some seconds I couldn't breathe. I wanted to push him away like I did earlier today, but then I froze as I heard a silent sob from behind my shoulders. He bundled me closer into his arms without saying a word and continued to sob. I couldn't believe my ears, or maybe I was hallucinating. My heart broke into tiny pieces as I felt his aching heart through our bond. My arrogant and possessive mate was crying on my shoulders. Was whatever making him cry that bad? I wondered, trying to untangle myself from his embrace so I could ask him what was wrong, but he simply tightened his arms around me so I couldn't even budge. I sighed, deciding to stand still, due he could empty his eyes and heart on my shoulders. His attitude gave me mixed feelings. I couldn't like him or hate him at the same time. And I couldn't stop myself from wishing I could share his pain with him. He seemed so vulnerable at this very moment. I wanted to keep him safe. After a few minutes, he withdrew a little, giving enough space to tilt my chin up with his finger, and took my lips into his in a gentle manner. I could taste the saltiness of his tears in my tongue. I still couldn't believe my hard-hearted mate was really crying. I looked up at him with a raised eyebrow, but he simply dropped his arms from mine. "I'll tell everything later," he said, and walked away. Some moments later, I heard a knock on the door, and all I could think of was Carla behind the door, so I went and opened it, wondering why she was bothering to knock at all. However, to my surprise, the person who was standing at the door wasn't Carla but the female that was meant to be my mate's chosen mate. "Heather," she sauntered into my room with so much audacity, looking flawless in her well-made makeup and elegant pale pink dress adorned with artistic embroidery, while I was now dressed in a simple top and jeans. How does she even make her hair look like that, so smooth and glossy? "Snap out of it, Emma," I yelled at myself. I wasn't supposed to be drooling over how gorgeous she looked right now. The right question should be, what the hell was she doing here? I couldn't ask without signing. And she didn't know I was mute yet. Neither did I want her to know that much about me. And it wouldn't be too good for the alpha right now. I wondered what she must be thinking right now. I was certain she would be thinking of how lowly and unworthy of the alpha I was and how much I didn't deserve him, none of which I cared about anyway. I don't see why she should be bitter, though. She would still be the Luna Queen, while I would be tucked away nicely in here forever, while warming the bed of her husband. I folded my hands across my chest, holding my ground and staring directly into her eyes. She chuckled, removing an invincible strand of hair from her face. "I'm sure you must have heard," she said, folding her hand across her chest with her usual elegance. I raised an eyebrow, wondering what she was up to. "Oh, maybe you haven't." She let out a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Well, Sorceress Gosh is dead." She shifted her weight from one leg to the other, waiting for her words to sink in. I don't even know any Sorceress Gosh or why her death should bring some kind of expression from me. She looked almost flustered when the reaction she was waiting for wasn't forthcoming. Sorceress Gosh is like a mother to the alpha, and she died last night. She spoke one word at a time as though she was speaking to a dummy. "Oh my God," I exclaimed in my head. Was that why my mate came here to sob on my shoulders that way? But why didn't he just say what the problem was exactly? And why the hell was Heather telling me? Who does she think she is anyway? Did you swear an oath of silence? She was trying to control an outburst. "What do you want from me, Heather?" I wanted to ask her so badly. "Anyway, the alpha needs you downstairs at the back wing of the castle, close to the beach." She finished, turned and sauntered out of the room, the same way she came in. Why would she be the one to tell me? I can't believe Alpha Zeke would tell her of all people to come and deliver such news to me. Well, the way he was earlier showed how much pain he was going through. Maybe he needed me after all. even though I couldn't fathom a reason why he would need me to come out when he was trying so hard to hide me. Let's just go and see what it was about, really, I decided, shrugging into my winter jacket and rushing out of the floor through the elevator. As I came down from the main entrance of the castle, it felt somewhat strange. None of the guard was there, so I simply thought it was because of what happened. I remembered the sorceress, as she was the one who was able to identify me immediately she saw me. She never liked me, but I felt bad for her on behalf of my mate. She must really be an important person for the Alpha to cry that way after her death. I strode through the way leading to the back wing, according to Heather's description. Before I was able to get close to the sea, I felt 2 strong hands grab me roughly from behind. I wanted to turn around to see who it was, but a folded white handkerchief was covered on my nostrils with so much pressure, freezing my thoughts and sending my mind into sudden blackness. Emma! Tap, tap, tap. I was woken up by a continuous sound of a drop of water on the ground, echoing throughout the hall. My head was hurting so bad, everywhere was dark, so I had to blink hard before I was able to see what was around me. There was nothing. I was in a place that looked like an empty storehouse. I was tied with the blue rope they used on me the first time I stumbled into the realm, but I wasn't feeling as weak as I was the other time. I dropped my head to check if the necklace my father gave me was still there, but it wasn't. Whoever kept me must have known what it was to take it away from me, or maybe not. I wasn't alarmed like the last time something of such happened to me, and I couldn't help but wonder if my mate was responsible for this one. If not him, who else would want to harm me? Would he really want to harm me? Wait! Heather tricked me? That bloody wench! I knew something felt odd about her, and my mate could have never asked her to send me such message. I wonder if he would have known about my disappearance by now. The worst was I couldn't even call for help. Ashley? I called my wolf, hoping she would be of some help. Ashley, are you there? But I couldn't feel or see her in my head. What the hell is happening? I knew Ashley. No matter how indifferent she was sometimes, she would never abandon me totally when we were in trouble this way. She wouldn't go totally silent on me. Or did the people who abducted me do something to her? Don't panic, Emma. Don't panic, I yelled at myself, but that couldn't stop the hot tears from streaming down my cheeks. I could hear footsteps form behind me, but the tightness of the blue rope wouldn't allow me turn, and soon I saw 2 huge men in front of me. They were wearing black leather jacket with pants, but didn't bother covering their faces, which I couldn't really see properly due to their abnormal heights. "How the hell are you still conscious?" one of them mumbled, peering down to look at my face, but his face wasn't familiar. "Seriously, is that important right now, dumbhead?" the other asked, sounding exasperated. "Anyway, we are going to be getting rid of you before the Luna Queen coronation, as the Alpha instructed." He continued, sounding like it meant nothing to him. A scalding pain shot through me at those words. My heart was ripping apart. My mate was going to take that conniving beach, Heather, as his Luna Queen? Was that why he wanted to get rid of me? I felt as though my heart was breaking into tiny pieces and sinking into the depths of hell. Why couldn't he just allow me leave with my father then if he didn't want me? Was this all I could get from loving him? I raised my teary eyes to look at them, hoping they would be merciful enough to let me go. I would never step my foot back on the soil of the werewolf realm ever again. I begged in my heart, wishing for probably the millionth time that I could talk. Maybe I would have been able to negotiate with them. "Don't worry, pretty one, we won't be killing you here," he stated, coming closer to where I was sitting. I didn't see his fist coming, and before I knew it, he slammed my cheeks with his iron fist, knocking consciousness out of me. Third-person point of view. Well done, daughter. Alpha Argo said to Heather, who was sitting across him on their dining table in the pack house of Green Forest Pack. "I'll take it up from here. Do you really think he would give in?" Heather asked, worried lines creasing her forehead. "Aren't stuffs like this going to backfire later? I mean, the sorceress is dead." Heather was visibly fidgeting on her seat, but calmed a bit as soon as her father walked to where she sat and placed a hand on her shoulders. "You only become a criminal when you are caught, child." His voice was soothing Heather's hysteria more now. You deserve the position of the Luna. You were trained for it all your life, and I'll do everything within my powers to make sure you get it. He patted her hair and went back to his seat. I just don't want out plans to fail after putting everything on the line like this. Heather muttered in a calmer tone. Don't worry, daughter, you'll get the alpha for yourself. He just couldn't tell his daughter what his real plans was. She was too much in love with the king to agree to it. But it was really simple, though. He kills the Alpha King, make his child the Luna Queen before that, and control the realm through her. Alpha Zyke, Curtis, please get my sister here right now. I ordered Kurt while we watched the activities of the security cameras of the whole castle. She told me she was going for a hiatus as usual, but this time was different. I couldn't risk losing anyone anymore. As Kurt stood up to go, my office door burst open and my sister walked into the office holding a large hardcover book. I was going to send for you, Tricia, I said, surprised and relieved. Well, I'm here now, she said, walking to where we were all seated. What is happening, brother? You found your mate and didn't even bother to tell me. A golden wolf, for that matter. Were you going to tell me about her after the Luna Queen coronation? Hey, hold your horses, sis. I raised my hands. She isn't here right now, and that's what we are trying to figure out. What do you mean by golden wolf? Because she had gold-colored furs. If your beta and gamma wasn't here right now, I would have called you an idiot. She spat angrily. Didn't the sorceress tell you yet? I saw everything at the ball, and I had to make some research. You were hiding her all these while because you thought she was what? An abomination? A half-blood? Joke's on you, brother. Kurt, Mint, and I were all staring at her like she has lost her mind or the too much hiatus she was going on was messing with her mind. Or maybe because she was reading too much. Kurt got up and dragged her to the side, asking her what the problem was in low whispers. Heather, the sorceress is dead. I breathed, dropping my face on my palms. Her body was found at the bush path near the beach, and while we were trying to investigate on her death, my mate was kidnapped. So I don't get what you are saying. Do you think there are some people trying to stop her from telling you? She asked, leaving Curtis to come face me. Tell me what, Tricia? I was beginning to get frustrated. Tell you about the prophecy, brother. Mate isn't just a gold fur-colored wolf. She is the golden wolf promised by the goddess, but you were too blind to see the gift right in front of you because you were too keen on keeping the family's dumb legacy. How many people would want her right now? How many realms would kill to get her on their side? Why? I'm not even surprised she was kidnapped. And after ranting, Tricia went ahead and showed us proofs of her words in the Book of Prophesies. The book she came with. It was true. I knew about the prophecy, every werewolf does, but it just didn't occur to me that something that grand would happen now, and before my very eyes for that matter. How could I believe I would be mated to the golden wolf promised by the moon goddess herself? My mind felt numb, and I couldn't think of anything for a moment. All the images I could remember were the times I treated my mate bad, the countless times I pushed her away from me, the time I treated her like she was absolutely nothing, the times I hurt her both physically and emotionally. I had rejected her the instant I met her, without even giving myself a chance to know how much of a sweet and kind soul she was. I would never forgive myself if I lose her. I was given a rare gem, but tossed it into the garbage. I stood up abruptly, startling everyone. They looked up at me with expectant faces. I'm going to get my mate, I said with a determined stance. How? They all chorused. I may not be able to find her as my mate, but I can find her as an alpha wolf. I said as a great idea dropped into my mind, Alpha Zyke. Wait, Tricia held me back. Her eyes was full of concerns. You can't just go look for her without a plan. What if you get hurt? I didn't say I was, Trish. I forced a small smile to reassure her. I'll be fine, trust me. I nodded at Curtis to come take her back to her seat. Truth be told, I wouldn't mind getting hurt, as long as I got my mate back to safety. She has been hurt enough. She had been through enough. It was time I took the fight from her, and I don't care if she can take care of herself. It has always been my duty to protect her, even though I didn't know this any sooner. I went into my room and started to look for one of my clothes I wore on Emma, and thankfully, the laundry team hadn't laid their hands on it. I cursed myself for not thinking about this earlier. I could trace her with her smell even without our bond. That was one of the perks of being an alpha wolf. Other wolves could do it, but it wouldn't be as accurate as mine. I left the castle, walking to the bush path close to beach, when I was stopped by Emma's personal maid. She was all teary eyes, asking me if I have heard from Emma. I told her to go get some rest and that Emma would join her shortly, which she took reluctantly. I left her and moved deeper into the bush path. There was no time to waste. I shifted into my wolf form, as Black was already waiting for the opportunity to go rescue our mate. It was getting dark. Still, I had to try and stay hidden as much as possible, so no one would suspect what was going on. Black sniffed the clothes, drawing a lung full of our mate's soothing smell. It was something that was stuck in our memory, but we needed the clothes to heighten it and help us reach her faster. Black broke into a run after smelling the clothes. We still couldn't feel her, but we could follow her scent. Black tore deeper and deeper as her whiff directed, and soon I noticed we were getting closer to the Green Forest pack. How did Emma get here? I wondered, pushing Black to run faster. Then something clicked in my head. The Green Forest pack was headed by Alpha Argo, father of Heather. He was the one who suggested that I take his daughter as my Luna Queen. The anonymous caller trying to strike a bargain specifically wanted me to make Heather the Luna. It could only mean one thing. Alpha Argo was desperate enough to go through any length to make sure his family becomes royalty. Like Trisha said, I was indeed too blind to see what was going on. I knew that Alpha was slimy and conniving, but I never knew he could get to this point. Let me get my mate out from there first. I would make him pay with everything I've got. Tall trees appeared in front, swaying to the direction the strong wind blew them. I was indeed in the Green Forest pack. It rained here more than any other packs in the realm. I kept going deeper and deeper into the pack, making sure I avoided the residential areas so as not to draw attention to myself. "Hold on, Emma. I'm almost there," I whispered in my head, praying fervently that she hangs in there. Her smell was stronger now, and it simply meant she was still alive. I was in the middle of a really thick forest now, dead leaves and shrubs and looming trees everywhere. I stopped running and shape-shifted back into my human form, started taking careful steps to be as quiet as possible. A drop of rain landed on the tip of my nose. Then more drops, and before I knew it, the little drops turned into a thunderstorm. I walked with ease now, keeping my wet eyes open and my ears peeled. Fortunately, my heightened sense of hearing caught a sound of people laughing from about 100 meters ahead. I followed the sound, which was leading to where my mate's smell was, only to find myself standing before an extremely tall tower in the middle of the forest. The tower was so tall, its roof was literally in the sky. It should be more 20 stories high. How did Argo build something like this in his pack and no one knew? Well, I guess he had been scheming a lot for these past years. 2 hefty men in black leather jackets stood sentry with sheathed swords by their side, in front of a tiny door which looked like the only entrance into the tower. I marched brazenly towards them, in a way that they noticed and were about to draw out their swords. But before they succeeded in unsheathing their swords, I ran to them in a speed of light, grabbed their throats, and snapped their necks before they could make further sounds. The tiny door was made of wood, so I nudged it open carefully. Ambling tentatively into a pitch-dark room, I looked around and was lucky to see a flight of stairs at my far right. The stairs were round and looked like I was going in circles instead of going up, but soon I arrived in front of an iron gate that looked like it was locked from the inside. A strong smell of red velvet and lemon wafted into my nostrils. Mine! Black growled in my mind, pacing around. I could feel her presence strongly now. I have come this far. Not even an iron gate would stop me, I thought as I hurled my weight into the gate. It didn't budge the first time, but I continued hitting and hitting until the door clanged open, falling flat on the ground. Before I could catch my breath, I saw Emma tied to a chair with that blue rope in the middle of a large room. The ceiling was evidence that this was the highest point of the tower. I gazed at my mate, and the sight of her caused my heart to rip apart. Her head was hanging low, and her face looked red and swollen. They were torturing her. They hurt her. These assholes had the temerity to lay hands on my mate. The thought aggravated me as I clenched and unclenched my fist, marching towards her. However, I decreased my pace when I sensed a presence behind me, and before the person could lunge at me, I twirled quickly and slammed my fist into his face. The unidentified man went sprawling on the ground. A blue stone fell from his pocket and rolled to where I stood. I picked it up and saw that it was the necklace Emma was wearing the other time. I rushed to where she was and cut the blue rope loose with my fangs. She dropped into her arms with her eyes closed. One of her eyes was swollen and red. A drop of tear dropped down my eyes at the sight. Look at what I've done. I wonder if she would ever forgive me. Emma, I called her name, relieved that she was still breathing. Emma, wake up. My voice sounded husky as though I was crying. I squatted on the ground, holding her tight against my chest, feeling my heart break and shatter at the thought of how much pain she must have been through. I wore her the diamond necklace, harboring a faint hope that it could bring back her consciousness. Drop her down now if you want to leave this place alive. A masculine voice spoke from behind me. I looked up to see about 10 men standing with bows and arrows pointed directly at my mate in my arms, ready to shoot. You don't get to give me orders, you low lives, I growled at them, watching all of their movements with hawk eyes. Now. One of the men signaled, and the rest fired. I twirled instantly, covering my mate with my whole body as I felt the piercing sting of arrows slicing into my skin. A blood-curdling growl erupted from my depth, sniping life out of me slowly. Blood was dripping out from different part of my body, including my mouth. Emma's eyes fluttered open, and as our eyes met, she gasped, her pretty face contorting in horror. No, she let out a shrill cry, scrambling out from my grasp. She stood up with so much vigor like she wasn't unconscious a few minutes ago. And she could speak. She was by my side, but I could hear sounds of grunts from those men and shattering woods on the floor. I was getting weaker and weaker, and it was getting harder to breathe, but I garnered enough strength to look up at her as she bundled me into her tiny arms, tears streaming down her eyes. Hey, you'll be fine, okay? Her voice was shaky and sweet. The first time I was hearing my mate talk, she crushed me to her bosom, her tears wetting my face. I smiled weakly at her, wishing she would continue speaking. I'm sorry, Emma, really. I forced myself to say and started coughing out blood afterwards. Pain seared through me as I coughed some more. Shush! Don't talk again, please, she sobbed quietly, her blue pupils changing to red, and then her face became more and more blurry till my mind shut down. Emma! A loud growl pierced into my subconsciousness, jerking my eyes open. The first thing I saw was my mate's face twisted in pain, blood spurting out from his mouth. Somehow his face turned into that of my mother with her red hair and expressionless face. And my father wasn't there to hold back the scream erupting from my inside. No, my voice rang out for the first time in 13 years. I scrambled up from the ground, still unaware of what just happened to me. About 10 men who all looked like the man in the mask who killed my mother were a few feet away, holding bows and arrows ready to shoot again. I instinctively stretched out my hands towards them, feeling the necklace glow brightly from my chest. I snatched their weapons from them without going close to them, and snapped their necks without having to touch them. After that, I crumbled down on the cold ground by my mate. His back was full of spears that pierced out of his chest and stomach. A cold feeling enveloped me as I watched life slip out of him. Blood was everywhere, like that night. The thought brought flashbacks that tore at my heart, and suddenly I was holding my mother against my chest. Wrenching sobs escaped me. The same helplessness back then seemed to cripple me now. I couldn't move. I couldn't do anything anymore, but hold her tight against my body. Everywhere was filled with blood now, my mate's blood. Hey, you'll be fine, okay? I tried to keep my voice steady, but it was trembling just as my whole body was. I looked at his face, and he was my mate again. He was smiling up at me, moving his lips as though he was trying to speak. I'm sorry, Emma. Really, he forced himself to say, smiling weakly at me, causing him to cough out thick red blood. Another bouts of flashbacks. My father drops me as soon as the men left and hurries to pick my mum up from the ground with blood gushing out from her chest. I could remember her frozen eyes, her knees on the ground, her hand holding the long spear pierced into her heart. My knees buckled as my weight couldn't carry my legs anymore. Her smiling and moving face appeared in my head then, a face I would never see again for the rest of my life, causing me to scream into the night. I rocked my mate back and forth while shivering uncontrollably, begging him not to say anything again. I couldn't see clearly anymore. My eyes was full of tears even as a few drops gathered under my cheeks. I couldn't get myself up. My mind was dark, filled with terrifying stuffs that made me feel like I was that little helpless 5-year-old child again. A scalding wrench burned at my heart, but it felt distant, like all my senses had suddenly gone numb. I wanted to scream for help, but I didn't know how to say the words, and the only things my 5-year-old mind could process was, my mate saved me. He might lose his own life because of me. He saved me, like my mother. I realized she could have saved herself with the diamond necklace, but she used it to protect me instead. I didn't see the 2 large hands that grabbed my back coming, trying to take my mate from me. No, leave him alone, I shrieked, tightening my hold around his body. It's us, Emma. You can let him go now. It's fine. Everything would be fine. A soothing, familiar voice that I couldn't place spoke to me, and when I lifted my head up, it was the guy with green hair. I knew him but couldn't place his face yet. My mind was still in chaos, but I felt a protecting aura coming from the other male holding me from behind. As he came into view, I saw the familiarity in his face and the shades of gray in his dark hair, but couldn't remember him yet. But I felt safe around the both of them, safe enough to loosen my hold on my mate before passing out on the shoulders of the one holding me. Third-person point of view. Alpha Zyke had no idea that after he left the office that his Gamma and Beta had followed suit. Curtis and Mint followed the Alpha's smell just as he followed his mates. Trisha begged to follow, but the both promised her they would come back with the Alpha unhurt. She agreed on the terms that if she doesn't see them after 6 hours, she would be coming after them with the whole army of the Royal Guards. And you have to go with at least 10 armed guards. She had instructed them, like the badass princess she was. They accented, carrying as much guards as Mint's Highlander could contain, which was not up to 10. Tracing the Alpha wasn't hard and didn't even really require his smell, as their night vision made it possible for them to see Black's footprint. But it was impossible as soon as they drove into Green Forest Pack because of the rain, so they had to rely on his smell to lead them. Mint drove at an insane speed despite the rain, which helped them arrive sooner than expected. Curtis wouldn't have allowed Mint drive that way on a normal day, but today was different. He would do the same if he was holding that steering. Without further ado, they rushed into the tower, which was already open by the time they got there. 2 men were lying unconscious on the ground, so Curtis ordered 2 of the guards to tie them up and wait at the door while the rest went inside. 4 men in black leather jacket rushed out of nowhere, swinging swords, but the royal guards were faster and more trained, taking the men down in a matter of seconds. 2 guards should guard this floor, and the rest should follow us, Mint ordered as he and Curtis dashed up the circling stairs till they got to the highest room in the tower. They both froze as they saw their Alpha lying in his own pool of blood, with his head on his mate's chest, spears in his back. She wrapped her hand around him, rocking back and forth, sobbing and muttering "Mother" over and over again. Some men were lying unconscious in the ground close to broken bows and arrows. Mint and Curtis had no idea what went on in this room, but saving their Alpha was priority. They both knew Emma was in some kind of daze, owing to her blank stare, cloudy eyes, and quivering lips, so they had to detangle her hand carefully from the Alpha. But as soon as Mint touched her, she thrashed around with her back, tightening her hold on the Alpha's shoulders, screaming for them to leave him alone. Mint nodded at Curtis, who spoke calmly to her, asking her to let him go in the most soothing voice Curtis could muster. A look of recognition crossed her eyes as she raised her head up to see their faces. Her face was wet with tears, and her whole body was visibly trembling. She finally loosened her clutch the Alpha was barely alive now, and slumped on Mint's shoulders after that. Kurt carried her from Mint to give him space to check on the alpha. Mint, the medical doctor among them, checked Zyke's pulse and realized he was in a very critical condition, and he held on this much because he was an alpha. With the help of the other guards, they rushed the alpha and his mate down to the car, then gave instructions to the other guards to bring those men down to the castle. The spears in the Zyke's back had to be removed with utmost care, and with life-saving medical equipment nearby, but they had none with them, so they had to drive like crazy to Mint's clinic without drawing attention from the member of the Green Forest pack. It would surely be a long night. A week later. Emma. It was a week of agonizing traumatic experience. I was stuck on my bed all through, fighting through series of nightmares and sudden daydreams that brought the images I was trying so hard to shove into the deepest depth of my mind. Carla was with me all through, taking care of me, reading me calming bedtime stories with happy endings, and sometimes I could hear her sobbing quietly beside my bed at night. She was so happy that I was alive and could finally talk. And when I was healthier, she made me say all sort of things so she could keep listening to me talk. "It's a miracle, Emma," she had said. I got better as days went by, but I wasn't allowed to go see my mate. They wouldn't let me no matter how much I begged. They only told me he was responding to treatment and won't let me stay by his side. I tried to go to his room but found 2 tall men standing guards in front of my room. I planned to leave this realm after coming out from the traumatic experience with the help of Carla, after seeing my mate hale and hearty, of course. I couldn't stay here any longer, as it seems like my presence was putting our lives under threat. I can't imagine anyone I love dying in my stead anymore. My mate can take Heather as his chosen mate, since that was what his realm wanted. I could never be his Luna Queen here. The people that did all that to us were still living freely, as Zeke's subordinates couldn't let anyone know that the Alpha was bedridden or anything else that went on that night. I winced as the image rushed back like a flood into my mind. I stood in front of the window, gazing at blue cloud as the sun broke through the darkness, planning a way to sneak out and go see my mate when I heard a knock on the door. Carla was deeply asleep on the couch, so I went to open the door myself. The green-haired beta, whose name I now knew as Curtis, smiled at me as soon as I opened the door. I should know him. He was my cousin, after all. "How are you feeling today, Emma?" he asked in his usual soothing voice. I remember him coming to my room to check on me during those times I was stuck in bed. He was indeed a sweet soul, as Carla said. Carla's crush, the Mint guy, came more usually to check my blood pressure and pulse. He brought some drugs that I didn't need but took due to Carla's incessant nagging, even though she always hid herself in the bathroom whenever he came. I smiled back at Curtis, watching his hair glitter in the sun rays. Still, he was part of the people who didn't allow me see my mate. "I'm fine, thank you," I replied curtly, waiting for him to say why he was here. "Alpha Zyke is asking for you, Emma," he said, the magic words that rid him of all his sins. A wide smile broke out of my face. "How is he?" I asked, almost jumping with joy. "You should go see for yourself, Cause." He grinned and stood out of the way, nodding encouragingly at me. I dashed to my mate's room, pushed the door open. He turned from the window he was standing close to as soon as I came in. He was healthier, but lost some weight due to his recovery process, but was looking so hot despite that. There was stubble on his cheeks that made him look so vulnerable. With soft stare from his pretty violet eyes, the white polo shirt and joggers he was putting on made him look sexier than ever. "Emma." Relief washed over me as I ran into his open arms, breaking into muffled sobs. "Thank you for not dying, Zyke," I said in between sniffs. "Say my name again, little mate," he demanded, with a breathy voice that sent delicious shivers down my spine. "Zik," I said as he wrapped his arms tighter around me. "Zik," my voice was louder this time. He held me back, with a misty look in his eyes, dipped his head, kissing the tears from my cheeks, sending tremors all over my nerves. "You cry too much, mate," he whispered huskily before resting his salty lips on mine, drawing the soul out of my body with a single kiss.